SABC Samira Hussein reports.
Gas and oil prices are surging as investors worry about how long the war will last. And with so much of global energy supplies relying on stability in the region, a protracted conflict could mean big spikes in energy costs. Now, the president made it clear that the U.S. would provide insurance and guarantees for all maritime trade, especially energy traveling through the Gulf. And that brought some calm to investors.
Recapping the top stories, suspended SAPS head of organised crime Richard Shibiri is expected to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. Soccer, Kaizer Chiefs struggles continue after a 1-0 defeat to Richards Bay. And in cricket, the unbeaten Proteas, they face New Zealand in today's T20 World Cup semi-final in Kolkata, with Captain Aiden Markram warning against complacency. All the details around 6:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A very busy morning in store for Durban. Motorists, listen carefully to this one. Stay away from it. Multiple reports of a cash-in-transit heist. Usual spot, N2, near the cement factory. So between the Higginson Highway and the M7 Bluff exit. Nothing moving in that area. If you can get through, it's very slow. So reports, CIT heist, cash-in-transit heist unfolding. A crime scene of some nature unfolding there. Reports of explosions and rifle fire. Stay off it. Use the M4, the Southern Freeway, as your alternative between the M7 and Chatsworth this morning. Just stay well away from that N2. It's a big story. We'll keep you up to date with that. Otherwise, we're watching a big truck crash around the Escort South area. If you're Durban bound coming out of Escort on your way to Mooi River, big backlogs there. Also on the Joburg bound carriageway, there will be some disruption as well. Gauteng traffic off to a decent start this morning. Traffic just building in the usual places. And Cape Town, a crash on the N2 inbound just after the airport, pushing a queue back as far as Khayelitsha. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 6, today is Wednesday, the 4th of March, 2026. The world you're waking up to this morning is significantly different from what it was when you went to bed last night. And that's because key news and current affairs developments here at home on the African continent and around the world have continued to shape, carve, and contour your world with each passing minute, even as you slept. That's our very reason for existence, why we get here bright and early every weekday morning to fully brief you on those developments as you start your day. Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Among some of what we will cover over the next 3 hours, what are Julius Malema and Solima Paila cooking up, and could it shake the foundations of left-leaning politics in this country? The leaders of the EFF and the SACP have held what they describe as a quote-unquote constructive bilateral meeting in Johannesburg, agreeing to establish a joint working group ahead of a planned conference of the left. That conference is set to take place before the 2026 local government elections and is aimed at uniting what they call progressive forces around a shared anti-capitalist program. Both parties say the cooperation is rooted in a shared overarching critique of the global capitalist system and a commitment to advancing economic emancipation while defending democratic gains. But beyond the rhetoric of unity, the big question is whether this signals a tactical electoral alignment, a broader left front in the making, or simply strategic positioning in a fragmented political landscape. So we'll pose those questions to Mbulelo Mandlana, the SACP spokesperson, who will speak to me at 7:10 at the start of the second hour. Quite intriguing. It happened on Monday. We are reflecting it today, and there was a lot of talk about it. You saw the pictures of the two leaders holding what they call tete-a-tete, heart to heart, just, talking to one another. So we'll talk to Mbulelo Mandlana about what it all symbolizes. Also coming up, a constitutional challenge in the Western Cape Division of the High Court that could potentially reshape how sexual offense cases are reported in the media in this country. The gender activist Caroline Peters is asking the court to strike down a provision that makes it a crime to name a rape accused before they plead, arguing that it silences survivors and shields alleged perpetrators. The Minister of Justice, on the other hand, says the temporary ban is there to protect victims and preserve fair trial rights, not reputations. So we'll revisit the arguments. They started yesterday, and we'll revisit how this law evolved, why it applies uniquely to sexual offenses, and what critics call its blunt instrument effect in a country facing staggering levels of gender-based violence. And we'll ask, what's truly at stake? Survivor agency, media freedom, or the constitutional balance between dignity, privacy, and the presumption of innocence? We'll do all of that with William Bird, who is the director of the Moxie Africa, and it's previously known as Media Monitoring Africa. That conversation coming up at 8:10. Basically, the long and short of the story is that there's a provision in the Criminal Procedure Act that means that naming someone who is a suspect in a rape or other sexual offense before that person has entered a plea of guilty or not guilty, doing that, naming that person in media reporting, publicizing their name, is a criminal offense. The one side of the argument says by naming the person, often you are indirectly identifying the victim, because in many instances there are familial and other ties to, between these people that are involved in a crime like that. But the counter argument is that it takes away the agency of the victim to tell their story, to actually, agitate for justice and speak out about these issues, because you and I know that it takes a long time, a very long time on average, to get from the point of arrest, point of first appearance in court, bail application, then all these postponements, and you may only get to a guilty or not guilty plea, in some instances 3 years down the line. So in all of that time, there's a sense that the alleged perpetrator enjoys that protection. So the critique of this section of the law is that it's worried more about the reputation of the alleged offender as opposed to, the agency of the victim in that particular circumstance. So it's a bit of a nuanced debate. William Bird, as I said, will talk to us about it at 8:10. It's being challenged in the court in the Western Cape, and you can be almost certain that it will rise up through the ranks as far as the superior courts of the country are concerned, and possibly end up in the Constitutional Court, depending on the outcome, of course. And lastly, this story. The Union Buildings has one, Sandton has one, Bloemfontein's Naval Hill has one, Cape Town City Hall, Howick, and now Durban's beachfront all have one. Towering bronze tributes to Nelson Mandela at some of the country's most symbolic landmarks. From the 9-meter figure at the Union Buildings to Nelson Mandela Square in Sandton, the Howick capture site, and the latest unveiling in eThekwini, the landscape of democratic South Africa is increasingly defined by monumental memory. So yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa has said that these statues anchor the collective memory of a nation and serve as promises that the sacrifices of liberation will not be forgotten. But as more memorials rise, including alongside statues, that one that was unveiled yesterday, the statue of Oliver Tambo as well, some critics are asking whether the country is at risk of over-memorializing the same struggle icons while grappling with pressing governance and economic challenges. So is this the necessary work of nation building and constitutional remembrance, or, as detractors suggest, a failure to read a restless national mood? So we will talk to those debates with Angelo Fick, who is Director of Research at the Awal Social Economic Research Institute, ASRI. That conversation is coming up at 7:20. I look forward to hearing from you as well as we raise that particular debate. The balance, right? There's no doubt that there's a place for national memory and memorializing in the form of statues, plaques, and institutions and installations and the likes. But are we striking the right balance in remembering across the spectrum liberation icons, or are we now at risk of over-memorializing the same struggle icons, as some critics are arguing? Morning Brief team, to your stations, please, for the takeoff. Ann Musa is good to go. She'll give you your news updates at the top of every hour and quick headlines at the bottom of every hour. Zaikan has updates from the world of sport just after the headlines at the bottom of every hour. Dowling Lechela with updates will update you on where money is being made and lost today. She's got your business, economics, and the market updates across the 3 hours. And it's a thumbs up from Sipho Mantula as well, who will take you on a quick whistle-stop tour of the African continent with a quick roundup of some of the stories you should be aware of and his ever-popular historical archive. And that's coming up at about 7:20 this morning. We've given Melissa Buta some time off today, well-deserved, so she's taking a break, and you'll not get the morning brief in brief. Your calls 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. The first hour of the morning brief on this Wednesday starts now.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one, get one offer, you get great value for money. Get a free pair of branded single vision prescription sunglasses up to 3,300 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye examination and spectacle frames with lenses on your first pair. The best part? Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Under Armour, Tommy Hilfiger, Red Bull Spect, and more. Affordable eye care? Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
You can become a victim of a legal problem. Wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The safety and well-being of learners is a shared social responsibility. Parents and guardians play a critical role in ensuring safe, reliable, and lawful scholar transport. Parents are therefore urged to take responsibility for the following. Before entering into any scholar transport arrangement, parents must satisfy themselves that the operator uses vehicles with valid roadworthy certificates and operating licenses, and that the driver holds a valid professional driving permit, PDP. By working together, parents, operators, and authorities can protect learners and build a culture of safety on our roads. Issued by the National Department of Transport.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, before you get to your weather, Sipho pointing out on the WhatsApp line that in the lineup I missed and I didn't mention Rob Byrne. Thank you, Sipho. Well spotted there. So unfortunately for Rob, he doesn't get time off just like that. No, not by decree. So Rob will give you updates throughout the 3 hours. All right, on the weather front, what we have, there's no impact-based warning. What we do have, though, is the rest of your weather. And in Pretoria, Johannesburg, Vereeniging will be cloudy at times with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, with Pretoria starting at a minimum of 17 and ending off at a maximum of 25. Johannesburg, partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 15 to 24. Vereeniging, partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 16 to 26. Mbombela will be cloudy at times with scattered showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 26. Polokwane, cloudy at times with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 16 to 24. Mahikeng, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers, 16 to 25. Freiburg, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers, 15 to 29. Bloemfontein will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 14 to 29. Kimberley, partly cloudy, 16 to 31. Uppington will be fine, becoming partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers, 24 to 35. Cape Town will be fine with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 25. George, fine, 11 to 24. Gqeberha, fine, becoming cloudy in the evening with fog, 13 to 27. Gugompo City, formerly East London, will be fine with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 27. Durban, partly cloudy, 20 to 30. Richards Bay will be partly cloudy, 21 to 34. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thunder showers, 16 to 30.
This February, fall in love with the journey. No phones, no flights, just determination, connection, and the open road. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected challenges, Race Across the World is back. Bigger, bolder, and more emotional than ever. Because sometimes the best way to find yourself is to travel together. Race Across the World Season 4, Thursdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Xolani Gwala will be back again for you 6 to 9 Monday here on SAFM.
And
thanks, Xolani. Good morning and welcome to Morning Talk with me, Sikim Gabadeli.
The name is Bongi Kwala. Good to be with you till midday today. Let's engage South Africa.
Welcome to Morning Talk on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader, with me, Rowena Bird.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
All right, before we get to that worldview update for you, we've got an item of breaking news coming through from our SABC News team and through our political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, saying that SABC News has reliably learned of the passing on of the former leader of COPE, Mosiuoa, the leader of COPE actually. The COPE leader, Mosiuoa, news coming in through our politics editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, and the team working on that story, saying that they've reliably learned that Mosiuoa has passed on. No details, of course, at this point, but we will be tracking that story and give you details as and when they do come through. But that is the breaking news story that is coming in this morning, the passing on of Mosiuoa, the leader of the Congress of the People.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
23 minutes after 6, tensions in the Middle East have escalated dramatically after the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran, killing the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and triggering a wave of retaliatory attacks across the region. As fighting spreads from Tehran to southern Lebanon, U.S. President Donald Trump says it's now too late for negotiations with Iran, despite earlier indications that talks could still take place. The U.S. has shuttered embassies in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, warning Americans to leave parts of the region as security threats intensify. So let's speak to Thembisa Fagute, who is director at Africa-Asia Dialogues, also a global governance analyst. Part of the discussion, we are seeking to unpack how Iran's political system is structured, specifically how its government intertwines with religion and why it has a supreme leader, a senior cleric positioned above elected institutions. Thembisa Fagute joins me now for that conversation. Good morning and thank you for your time. Before we get to unpacking how the political system works in Iran, let me just ask a broad question, your own reading. Why do we seem to have Iran at this moment at the center of the geopolitical universe? Why Iran?
Well, Iran is key because it sits on a very key geographical position. So it's on a Persian Gulf, and it's got resources, both gas and oil, and it's the most important country in that part of the world. And another important factor to consider is that it controls the Strait of Hormuz, which is basically a gateway for all the GCC countries, at least Dubai to an extent and Oman are outside the Strait of Hormuz, but the rest of the Gulf countries are within. So anything that is exported, particularly gas and oil, from these countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, Qatar, and others, have to go through the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran controls that. So it's important because of that geographical positioning.
So let's talk then about the relationship, in particular between the United States and Iran. It's a fascinating case study, isn't it? It's had its ebbs and flows over the years, but I suppose many people go to the turning point being the revolution, the Iranian Revolution in 1979. But it's a layered and textured history even before then.
Yes, indeed, and the Americans have never forgotten the role Iran played, particularly with the hostage that took place in Iran, in Tehran, where the American diplomats were held by the revolutionaries in Iran. That has remained a sore point for Americans for a very long time, and they've always wanted to revenge or pay revenge for that incident, and they've never forgotten it. And the fact that Iran, of course, became an Islamic republic, that also added to that sticking point, at least within the American presidency over the years. So they've always wanted to see the collapse of Iran, and they've always wanted as well to control the resources of Iran. So whatever opportunities over the years that came their way to take advantage of or possible toppling of the government of Iran, they've used that, but they haven't succeeded. The only tool that they could use over the years again was sanctions, drawing in other countries to put pressure on Iran, accusing Iran of proliferation and wanting to produce a nuclear weapon, notwithstanding that the Iranians have always said that they're not going to be producing a nuclear weapon. One. Number two is Islamically, of course, it's haram to have a weapon of mass destruction. So this has always been a pretext, of course, accusing Iran that Iran wants to establish a weapon of mass destruction with an intention of attacking Israel.
So let's talk about the killing of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Much focus on it, but what does it say about the political system? We describe Iran as a theocracy. What does that mean exactly? And how is it likely to play itself out? The American president is talking about Iranians taking over their own government. How would that likely play out in the context of a theocracy as we describe?
Well, first of all, this is a murder. This is a crime that was committed by both Israel and America. Iran has never attacked any country in the world. The countries that have continually attacked others and kidnapped leaders of countries has been United States and Israel. Israel continues to bombard and commit genocide in the Middle East. So the killing of Ayatollah, of course, Ayatollah Khamenei, is going to disturb the leadership and the governance of Iran, because Iran has got layers, as you correctly put it. One is a supreme leader, which basically governs or controls the leaderships of Iran, because there are various leaderships within Iran. And this is why right now many people will say Iran is on autopilot, because each of those leaderships, each of the leaderships within the umbrella body, which was controlled by Ayatollah Khamenei, is now operating on its own without necessarily being controlled by a central government. So there are three leaders at the moment who are sitting on the Supreme Council controlling the government of Iran, but within that, we've got different layers of governance and defense systems and organizations that controls Iran. And since the killing, and right now, of course, there's no opportunity to meet or have a cabinet meeting all of those leaderships are actually on their own, and they are operating on the instructions that were given by Ayatollah Khamenei before he passed on. So, in the absence of Ayatollah of an imam that will take over that responsibility, each of these platforms are at the moment having full control within their own ambit on how to govern themselves and and to execute what was decided before the Ayatollah passed on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. There's a point you make about Iran not having ever attacked any other country. Of course, the counter view will say that they may not have put boots on the ground or planes in the sky, but actually they've done a lot of damage, significant damage through proxies that have been operating. Israel will definitely hold that view. The United States will say there have been instances where Americans have died as a direct result of Iranian action.
Well, that's arguable. Proxies and support, people will argue that Iran has supported various organizations within the region, but the control and the setting of agendas of those organizations, others will argue that it lied totally and completely within the ambit or control of those organizations. Similarly, you have United States, Israel supporting many other platforms around the world, but nobody really talks about the United States, for example, controlling their proxies in form of governments and the puppet regimes that they've had, whether in the Middle East or other parts of the world. So yes, I do agree that Iran has a link to organizations in the region, particularly Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah, and they've been very open about it, including those organizations, confirming that they do get support from Iran. But whether Iran is totally in control of their agenda is another question, and is argued by many people that that might not necessarily be the case.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time and your insights as always. Tembisa Fagute, Director of Africa Asia Dialogues, also a global governance analyst. Let's go to Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to Las. We start with breaking news. The Congress of the People leader, Mosiuoa Lekota, has died at the age of 77. His family has confirmed his death. He had stepped back from active politics last year to focus on his health. Suspended SAPS head of organised crime Richard Shibiri is expected to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. He will be grilled on his alleged links to cartel members and interfering in the investigation of the killing of Vereniging engineer Amin Swart. And the US says it has struck nearly 2,000 targets in Iran since launching its joint bombing campaign with Israel. Iran has not yet commented on the US statement. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Here's the top one down in Durban. It is going to be an extremely disruptive morning. A cash in transit heist on the N2. It's in the usual spot where they always happen there between the Higginson Highway and the M7 exit, the Bluff exit. So in the visuals that we're seeing, you can see the cement factory looming large in the background. And that's the section we're talking about. So northbound, 100% closed. You'll be diverted off, I guess, either from Prospecton onto the M4, or you might be able to sneak through and come off at the Higginson Highway exit onto Leicester down through to Grimsby Road. So northbound definitely closed. Southbound, I assume, is closed as well. So you can see a lot of traffic coming off that N2 south of the M7, running in big queues down to Bel Air and Wakesley. So effectively the N2 closed between the M7 and Higginson Highway. Major delays in the area, especially those alternative routes. Higginson Highway, M7, routes like Wakesley come into play, South Coast Road. It's all going to be majorly disrupted. High traffic volumes on that section of the N2, and it all has to be shipped to those local alternatives. Gives you plenty of time to get through. The other scene we're watching is a truck crash just by Escort South. If you're on your way to Durban, there's a really big backlog of traffic coming through Escort. If you know what you're doing, exit at Escort, hit the R103, come back on further south to avoid that. Joburg roadworks continue apace on the N3 North before Van Buren, so again heavy out of Germiston and Alberton. And major delays reading into Cape Town this morning with a crash just after the airport on the N2 by Robert Bookway and Dana Fontaine Road Junction. That's the reason for the big queues inbound as far back as Spine Road in Khayelitsha. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Kaizer Chiefs fans, close your ears for a moment. Close your ears for a moment. Zai, good morning. So I suppose the situation at Kaizer Chiefs can best be described by quoting Gwede Mantashe. Kubi pa. Kubi pa. Or as JJ Tabane would say, it's bad.
Oh, wow. It's bad.
It's bad.
Please, let's handle the story gently. You know, we've got that one Kaizer Chiefs supporter in the building.
Yes.
So, yeah, maybe somebody needs to check on.
I feel threatened right now. So please make it quick. Pass over the story quick. Yeah.
Let's go through it. Richards Bay securing their first Betway Premiership victory, beating Kaizer Chiefs 1-0 at the Mosiuoa Sports Complex last night. The Natal Rich Boys snapped a 4-match winless streak, while Chiefs' struggles deepened with a third consecutive league defeat and 4 losses, and that's in their last 5 matches across all competitions. From there, Tears Galaxy, their poor run continued. They suffered a 5th straight Betway Premiership defeat, losing 2-1 to Orbit College at Mbombela Stadium. And Stellenbosch FC missing the chance to move into the top 8 of the Betway Premiership after a goalless draw against Siwelele FC, and it all happened last night. Now, more soccer. FIFA World Cup 2026 will take center stage from the 11th of June to the 19th of July. The tournament will be broadcast live on SABC3, SABC Plus, and SABC radio stations. You can look forward to every decisive moment as the world's top teams compete for global supremacy. Brought to you by SABC Sport, the official broadcaster of the FIFA World Cup 2026. And we'll also bring you more news this time with the likes of the tennis stars that have been stranded in Dubai. Daniil Medvedev, who won the Dubai Open, has been sent onto a flight out of the country. We also have more tennis with Carlos Alcaraz. He's putting his 12 to love start to the season on the line, and this is when Indian Wells begins this week. The Spaniard is fresh from completing the career Grand Slam at the Australian Open. He's already a 2-time champion in the California desert, and it could renew his rivalry with Yannick Sinner. Novak Djokovic is also chasing history, targeting a record 6th Indian Wells title. On the women's side, Aryna Sabalenka returns, looking to bounce back after her Australian Open disappointment. That's the sport for now. On the morning brief, check back. We'll serve it up top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauling for the first update of the morning. Ndauling, let's start with economists pushing back rate cut bets for African central banks. What's that about?
Now, this comes as the conflict over in the Middle East continues to escalate, and we're seeing economists and traders increasingly concerned about the ripple effect higher oil prices could have on inflation, in turn, monetary policy moving forward. And many say elevated energy prices could delay planned interest rate cuts across the continent. Now, 9 African countries, including Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, and the DRC, reduced rates last month thanks to lower inflation and strong commodity-driven surpluses. But the surge in oil is forcing central banks to reconsider. Here at home, traders now almost see no chance of a rate cut at this month's meeting after pricing in a 32% chance just last week. Economists say countries heavily reliant on imports like Egypt and Kenya are most exposed to disruption from the conflict, while oil exporters such as Nigeria, Angola, Gabon, and Senegal could benefit.
So stop-start seems to be the story for the conveyor belts in the world's manufacturing factory, China.
That's right, Tulas, and we're seeing that country really facing renewed headwinds when it comes to the manufacturing sector, with factory activity contracting for a second consecutive month. Now, the official PMI slipped to 49 in February, below the 50 mark that separates growth from contraction and slightly missing expectations of 49.1. While over in January, there was an increase, activity was still below that 50 mark. Now, February's reading matches levels last seen in October and April last year, highlighting persistent weakness in the world's second largest economy. A prolonged 9-day Lunar New Year holiday temporarily boosted travel, entertainment, and duty free sales, but that wasn't enough to offset ongoing pressures from a struggling property sector, weak employment prospects, and lingering deflationary forces. The slowdown in factories is expected to prompt Beijing to lower this year's growth target. Now, policymakers are signaling a range of 4.5% to 5%, down from the roughly 5% target of recent years, reflecting ongoing challenges in China's economy.
Lastly, Dowling, recap for us market activity from yesterday and how we are starting the day this morning.
I have one word to describe what happened yesterday, and all I can say is yo.
Yo.
Listen to us. Yeah, it was a bloodbath. It really was. The last time stocks were this downbeat was during Liberation Day, and leading the losses over in the US was the Nasdaq, which shed 1%. Back home, declines were even steeper. Speaking to Alex Dace from Umthombo Wealth, he noted that this was the 9th worst day for the JSE since the global financial crisis. Now, we saw the all share shed 5%, dragged down by resources, which crashed almost 10%, with precious metals even selling off. Now, investors are seeking safety in the dollar, which has pushed the rand lower. It's trading at 16.56 against the greenback this morning, back above 22 to the pound and 19.22 to the euro. Over in commodities, oil continues to make gains on the back of the conflict in the Middle East, trading just below $80 a barrel. And then lastly, in Asia, markets still reeling from the energy shock as many traders begin to assess the potential economic fallout.
So that's quite interesting then, Dowling. It seems as if, because on Monday you said, with the worst expectations, but in the end, yes, it was bad, but not as bad as we had expected. So I suppose we were in the front part of the storm. We were yet to get into the eye of the storm.
So I think what's actually also happening to us is that this week we have quite a few Fed officials making speeches across the US. And what we're hearing is rhetoric around potentially holding back on rate cuts. And I think that's what's sparking the volatility, because some of those Fed officials are starting to consider the risks associated with higher oil prices, and inflation flaring is coming back to the table.
All right, Dowling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you once again just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, we turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. A couple of days ago, I was watching a documentary that made the links between the conflicts in the Gulf with conflicts on the African continent, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan. And I thought, that's a bit of a stretch. They have their own complexities. But here we are this morning, you and I are talking about Sudan and Ethiopia and some kind of allegations about drones.
That is quite true, Thulas. Thulas, you remember in the Gulf, you say they are practicing what you call the drone diplomacy. It's coming to the horn now when you look what's happening now. For the first time, Khartoum officially accusing Ethiopia of interference in the 3-year-long war between the regular army of the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support force. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sudan have said that the hostile act, that is a clear sign of aggression that is coming, but they did not specify to us, because once you allege, you have to prove. And if one looks, the issue that Ethiopia has been quiet also, it is in terms of when, how, and who was throwing all those drones, as they are alleging. And this came out also clearly at the UN Security Council meeting, where there was this issue of the absence of the ceasefire between the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces. But Addis Ababa is mum to us. They have not said anything. And as you have said, we've got all those forgotten conflicts in the borders of Eritrea and Ethiopia, and both North and South Sudan. They are still experiencing conflicts.
A lot of political ructions in my other alternative African country, Senegal. The president and the prime minister are not seeing eye to eye.
So they're not seeing eye to eye. Whether is it the issue of that we said at some point there was a university unrest by young people. There is this issue of IMF borrowing of money, that uncertainty. And also you will recall that Sonko has been the one who was at the front line of the Senegalese politics in 2024. Diomaye Faye just came towards the end. Now it seems that Sonko is now saying that he will pull out from this coalition party and return into opposition bank. This has been going on to us. These are the cracks that we're seeing emerging between coalition leadership, and it's just around the issue of the debt restructuring and the issues around the student protests that have been going on in Senegal.
Let's go to Congo Brazzaville. So interesting, there words coming from Denis Sassou Nguesso that he will not remain in power forever.
He says so, but come election on the 15th of March, once he's back in power, he says that he's preparing for the new current crop of leaders who must take over. He says that there's a need for them to be trained, for them to learn to work hard. And that's why he says that for almost 4 decades in power, he's got only 6 candidates who are racing for this seat of the president in Congo Brazzaville. Others are saying issues of poverty are still there, even if Congo Brazzaville has got natural resources. But here it seems Denis Sassou Nguesso will hold him accountable with this way that he will not stay in power for long, because he's still 82 years old. He might maybe leave office at the age of 86 or 87.
Okay, and that doesn't amount to staying in power forever. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
Lastly, for your historical archive, the 4th of March, 1932, a significant day for the African continent.
That's quite true, Tula. Today it will have been 94 years of Dr. Miriam Zenzile Makeba, the cultural emissary and ambassador of South Africa and Africa, Tula. You'll recall Miriam Makeba, born 1932 on this day. She got Grammy Awards with Harry Belafonte. He died in 2008. Interestingly, the family has also issued a media statement to us, the foundation and the family, talking about the link of Miriam Makeba about the year 1976 to us. Even if we talk about 50 years of Soweto, she was at the UN Security Council, General Assembly, representing Guinea Conakry, where he raised the issues of South Africa's case at the United Nations General Assembly from 1963, 64, and 76. And finally, young people who are inspired by Miriam Makeba, they are in the league of people like Thandiswa Mazwai, Angelina Kijo, Yvonne Chaka Chaka, Simphiwe Dana, so me and the granddaughter, Zenzi Makeba Lee. As we say, a luta continua to Mama Africa, Mezenzile Miriam Makeba.
All right, Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with the Africa update for this morning.
The Cottagers are confident they will control the tempo at home and move the ball with purpose.
And there's a chance for Raul. Is that handball? It's in the net. Raul Jimenez has done it again.
Meanwhile, the Hammers arrive with power, pace and extra edge to conquer the London derby.
So it's ball in towards Sojek! It's Thomas Sojek for West Ham United, not long after half-time.
This is the Premier League. Be part of the derby that never disappoints. Fulham FC versus West Ham United on Wednesday, 4 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
In life's most challenging moments of loss, compassion can be your greatest comfort. You shouldn't have to face the financial burden of losing a loved one by yourself. Rest assured, Clientele's funeral plans pay out cash within 24 hours. You can cover up to 13 family members on one plan, ensuring all your loved ones are taken care of, and 3 children are covered at no additional cost. With Clientele, you are not just buying a plan, you are also buying peace of mind. When the time comes, you will need to make important calls with your 200 Rand airtime you will receive when you claim. Plans offer double accidental death cover as well as a transport, grocery and unveiling benefit. Apply today. It's easy. There are no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
What's with the camouflage, Doof? I'm going hunting. Just me, nature, and my most underrated off-roader, a rental car. Hunting? You could fit that little car in your backpack, Doof. I sit in the driver's seat. Baggage at the back, chairs on the roof. The kudu is going to get in and strap its own seatbelt, Savvy. Could do with more legroom, Doof. Go hunt for a new 4x4 at We Buy Cars. They got great deals. Oh, shot, Savvy.
Don't be doof, be savvy. We Buy Cars, geared for that big trip, geared for you.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, a cash in transit heist incident unfolding this morning in Durban. Things have settled down after the initial sort of excitement and emergency situation to give us a clearer picture of the traffic flow that is now in place. So the N2 going south is closed from the M7 down to the Higginson Highway exit. So N2 onto the south coast, all closed. Major backlogs around the M7, N2, with motorists having to come off and largely go down to sort of Wakesley and Bel Air. So that's all heavy. And then Bel Air, Wakesley's bad, going south towards Salia, and also the M7 down around South Coast Road. So you've got big volumes on that M7 diverting away from the N2 south closure. N2 north is heavy because of what's unfolding on the southbound carriageway. So you can get through the N2 north, but it's dreadfully slow. Impacts on routes like Higginson Highway out of Chatsworth, the N2 north up to the N2 to the M4 Southern Freeway, the Southern Freeway through Jacobs and Clarewood, all very slow. The M4 going into city centre slow as well. So just a lot of traffic out of place this morning, basically between Prospect and the N2 M7. There's a lot of traffic in that area, and it all stems from that dramatic cash in transit heist closing the N2 southbound. Also a cash van issue on Pretoria Road, or Bronkhorstspruit Road, if you like, just on the western side of Solomon Mashlangu. So there's a lot of disruption in that area as well. I don't know if it's a van that's overturned or whether it also is part of a crime scene. Joburg, the N3 north at Van Buren, the roadworks pushing ahead there between Heldnase and Van Buren. So again, as we were saying yesterday, just heavy coming out of Alberton and Germiston. It'll be like that every morning on that N3 until those roadworks are lifted. Cape Town, earlier crash, N2 inbound after the airport's been cleared, but it's left a big backlog of traffic inbound this morning. Crash on Jan Smuts and Klipfontein causing some heavy delays in the heart of Athlone. And if you're on your way out of Somerset West towards Stellenbosch, quite a queue, R44 north to Annandale Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
When music meets nature, something unforgettable happens. Symphony by the Water, a world-class live music experience set against the breathtaking beauty of Midmar Dam, featuring the KZN Philharmonic Orchestra, Spogazi, the Black Labels, Saturday, the 7th of March, 2026. Day tickets from 150, evening tickets from 350. Tickets available at WebTicket and Pick and Pay. Symphony by the Waters, where sound flows.
Catch the season premiere of Color Your Plate this Sunday evening at 7 as 4 hungry home cooks step into the kitchen to reimagine beloved family favorites in bold and unexpected ways. With the return of a Sterling from a previous season judging their every move, only one will earn the chance to progress and cook alongside them in the next round. Who will impress and take the first step forward? Find out on Color Your Plate, Sundays at 7 p.m, repeat Saturdays at 4:30, only on SABC2.
As you sit in traffic reflecting on a good day, projects on track, clients happy, and they're a big one too. They trust you with all their sensitive data that's kept in your outdated work laptop, in your car, as you sit in traffic. Don't let bad tech choices get in the way. Switch to tailored secure cloud solutions, because nothing should stop your business. Call 084 1234. Cell C.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
5 minutes to 7. All too familiar warning signs of non-compliance in the country's construction industry are emerging once again, this time in the wake of the deadly Omonde building collapse here in Johannesburg, where 9 workers have now been confirmed dead. Authorities say there were no approved building plans on file, and the company behind the project was not registered with the National Home Builders Registration Council, despite it being a legal requirement for home builders. City officials are also saying that they are still battling to trace the company's owners, while inspectors admit severe capacity constraints in policing illegal developments. The Public Works Minister, Dean McPherson, says the tragedy exposes systemic weaknesses and fragmented oversight in how the built environment is regulated. Let's talk a bit more about that. I'm joined by Dr. Msizi Miyeza, CEO of the Council for the Built Environment. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So just your overall impressions of what we're dealing with here. For me, it had echoes of recent incidents, and I thought when I heard some of what is being said about compliance, here we go again.
An opportunity to us, it's sad really that we're having this conversation again, and unfortunately, the incident that we visited yesterday, a resemblance of what we saw in Doronkop, what we saw in Varench, what we saw in George, and what happened also recently in Magnolia in Cape Town. And I think there are a couple of issues that seems to be creeping into our industry. I must underline this point to us that the built environment and construction sector in South Africa is renowned globally. Our professionals are practicing in different countries. However, what has happened recently, it's really putting a dent in our sector, and I think it requires an introspection, and it requires that introspection urgently, and we can't afford this. And I just to indicate, like based on the summation, it's lawlessness. I mean, such huge structures can be constructed in the city of Johannesburg, in the middle of the city, and just someone proceed and build the structure without any due process. And I think those are some of the issues that, as the society, must reflect on.
There's a sense then that's coming through from the minister, Dean McPherson, who says there are systemic weaknesses. And I know you and I have gone over these points, and I suppose we will for as long as these incidents keep happening. Is it a case of too many regulatory authorities that need to be exercising oversight, such that there was always going to be a lapse in coordination? Because you have got City Council for Plans, NHBRC, then there's yourselves somewhere in the mix involved there for the interests of the profession and others, such that it was always going to have a lapse somewhere in the system.
That is precisely the point why we have argued in our report that we have submitted to the ministry, that there must be a single line of sight. And that report will be consolidated together with report from other ministries that have certain aspects of the value chain. And we're hoping that Cabinet will be able to deliberate and make a decision, because this can continue. Obviously, the profession and the industry is changing, and our rules are a bit outdated. And I think it's important for us to catch up, so that at least we can close the gaps that some of the scrupulous contractors and developers and professionals have actually utilized over the passage of time.
So until there have been those systemic fixes, what do we do now? How easy is it, for example, for a person without, so much as knocking on any door of an authority to suddenly be building a 3-story building somewhere in the middle of a suburb here in Joburg?
I'm afraid it's very easy. I mean, if it happens in Joburg, you can imagine in a smaller municipality of Kwambonambi or Echozini or Kuruman. So with capacity, if Joburg complains about capacity of inspectors of 159 building control officers and inspectors, you can imagine the scale and the magnitude of smaller municipalities. So it's very easy. But I do think that it requires a collective approach where councillors and community members must be empowered enough to at least identify some of the suspicious activities in their areas. And understandably, workers might not be able to to report some of these deficiencies that they see on site, because workers know. However, due to unemployment issues, they will look aside, and the result is what we saw at Omonde.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. And as always, thank you for just coming on and grappling with these issues with us. That's Dr. Mosiuoa, CEO of the Council for the Built Environment. So certainly an industry and a sector that needs to do deep reflection, and systemic changes are clearly needed. The number of instances where there's a building collapse is just, it really seems to be growing, and it has reached unacceptable levels. Let's go to Ann Musa, standing by with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, COPE leader Mosiuoa Lekota has died and Ramaphosa justifies unveiling of statues. Good morning. Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekota has died. His family has confirmed his death at the age of 77. Lekota had stepped back from active politics last year to focus on his health. This led to the appointment of Teboho Luate as the interim leader of COPE. Lekota is a former high-ranking ANC member. He served as the first Free State Premier from 1994 to 1996 and as Defence Minister from 1999 to 2008. In other news, suspended SAPS head of organised crime Richard Shibiri is expected to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. He will be grilled on his alleged links to cartel members and interfering in the investigation of the killing of Vereniging engineer Armin Swart. Swart was gunned down outside his workplace in April of 2024 in a case of mistaken identity. Sibahle Mota reports.
General Shibiri is expected to take the hot seat at the Matlanga Commission this morning. Witnesses A and B, who previously testified before the inquiry, accused him of trying to interfere with the murder investigation of Armand Swart. Swart was gunned down outside his place of employment in a hail of bullets. Witnesses A and B have testified that General Shibiri warned them that the suspects who are arrested for Swart's murder are very dangerous people. 4 people were arrested for his killing, and they include Warrant Officer Michael Buledau and alleged cartel member Katiso Katie Molefe.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has conceded there has been backlash to the 22 million rand spent on new statues of anti-apartheid leaders Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela in Durban. The 10-meter bronze statues were unveiled yesterday. Some residents and opposition parties say the money should have been spent on delivering basic services, but Ramaphosa says the statues play an important role in preserving the country's liberation history. He was speaking in Durban.
We unveil these statues knowing that people from across our country and across the world will come to see them. Our mayor has said they become a great tourism attraction. Our city manager has said, yes, there were 1.2 million visitors who came to Durban in the past season. And we want 1.5 million. I would say we want double the number that he's projecting. That's what we want. eThekwini is one of the premier tourist destinations in our country. And we can anticipate that these statues will contribute to exceptional growth in tourism.
The Gauteng Health Department will host a provincial World Obesity Day in Daba in Sidibeng. The department says 23% of children aged 6 to 14 in the country are overweight or obese. The department is stepping up efforts to combat rising childhood obesity in the province with the launch of Asibe Healthy Jozi Kids initiative. The aim of the initiative is to promote a healthy lifestyle. MEC Nomantunkomo Ralioko.
We work with schools, parents, healthcare workers, and partners to promote healthy eating, regular physical activity, and supportive environments for our children. Prevention starts at home, at school, and in our communities. We must encourage our children to move more, eat better, and build healthy habits that will protect them for life.
And finally, the US says it has struck nearly 2,000 targets in Iran since launching its joint bombing campaign with Israel. Iran has not yet commented on the US statement. The US Central Command says it has severely damaged Iran's aerial defense system. Admiral Brad Cooper, in a video statement, says 50,000 American troops were involved.
We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. Our B-2 bombers and B-1 bombers have executed uncontested surgical strikes against multiple missile facilities deep inside Iran. And then just last night, a B-52 bomber force struck ballistic missile and command and control posts.
Recapping the top story, Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekota has died. His family has confirmed his death at the age of 77. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
Without insurance, saving on your car insurance feels like finding a till with no queue on payday weekend. 27-year-old Lynn saves a mind-blowing 638 Rand on her 2025 Haval Jolion. Get a quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. The unbeaten Proteas face New Zealand in today's T20 World Cup semi-final in Kolkata, with Captain Aidan Markram warning against complacency. And soccer action, Kaizer Chiefs struggles continue after a 1-0 defeat to Richards Bay. We'll have details around 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. After the initial cash in transit heist in Durban, we've got a clear picture now of exactly what's happening in terms of traffic flow. So the N2 routing southbound, that's the side that this incident unfolded. That is closed. So some really big delays coming from the M7, or coming from Spaghetti Junction, if you like, down to the M7. This is on the N2 south, and then a divert into impossible traffic on the M7, which backs from Queensborough down to Bel Air Wakesley, taking all that diverted pressure. Also, you can't get on off the M7 onto the N2 south. So there's just a lot of pressure there. M7, Wakesley Road, Sarnia Road, all of those routes heavily backed up. Northbound looks like you can probably get through, but there's big queues this morning from Prospect and making your way up along that N2 towards the Southern Freeway split. A lot of traffic on the Southern Freeway through Jacobs, Clarewood, and a lot of pressure on routes like the M7 again at South Coast Road and South Coast Road through that Clarewood area as well. So the N2 South closed due to a cash in transit and all sorts of traffic problems this morning between the N2, M7 and Prospect, and make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. Otherwise, M13 staying in Durban, Hillcrest onto Fields Hill. That looking very slow this morning. Joburg, the N3 North roadworks continue unabated up at Van Buren Road. Big delays as you come up from Germiston and Alberton again this morning. Olifantsfontein out of Blue Hills Midrand towards the highway. That's desperately busy. And into Cape Town, the crash on the N2 at Robert Sobukwe is being cleared, but it's left a whole pile of traffic moving slow to Hospital Bend. And also a crash right in the heart of Athlone this morning, Jan Smuts and Klipfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7. Welcome to it, the second hour of the Morning Brief. We are on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, also live on all of our digital platforms. On YouTube, we are SAFM Radio, and on Facebook and on X, we are live as well at SAFM Radio. It's good to have you with us this Wednesday morning. Among some of what we will tell you in this half hour, we'll start with a conversation with Mbulelo Mandlana, who is the South African Communist Party Head of Communications. And we're talking in the wake of what the two parties, the SACP and the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, have hailed as a constructive bilateral meeting. You know, this is something you possibly could not have scripted a couple of years ago, that Julius Malema and Solima Paila would be sitting side by side and talking about the potential for holding, I don't know, they're calling it a conference of the left and consolidating what they are calling progressive forces. So that has happened, and the question we're asking is, what are they cooking up, and could it really shake up the foundations of left-leaning politics? So that conversation with Mbulelo Mandlana is coming up in the next few minutes. And then immediately after that, we talk to Angelo Fick. You'll have heard in the news with Ann Musa there that President Cyril Ramaphosa is acknowledging some of the debate and controversies around the unveiling of more statues for Nelson Mandela and Oliver Tambo. That happened in eThekwini yesterday, and basically the president speaking there saying that the bronze statues are anchors of collective memory. But how many statues of Nelson Mandela are out there in the country? And do we strike the right balance between memorializing as many, if not all, of our founders, right, as possible? And I was counting the list earlier on. You've got one at Union Buildings, Nelson Mandela statues, that is. There's one at Sandton, in Sandton, around the Nelson Mandela Square. Naval Hill in Bloemfontein has one. City Hall in Cape Town has one. And I think I saw a report about another one in the Eastern Cape. I can't remember where exactly. Of course, there are differing sizes, and also the agency as to who put it up. Also, there's that slight nuance. Howick capture site, there's something there, and installation. Rightly so, because those are sites of significance. But you have to start asking the questions about, when do we celebrate the other struggle icons? So we'll speak to Angelo Fick about that and other issues that come up in that debate. He is Director of Research at the Awal Socio-Economic Research Institute, ASRI. You can be a part of these conversations. I want to hear your take on all of these matters and others. The number to dial, 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes and messages, 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. The second hour of the morning brief starts now.
This February, fall in love with the journey. No phones, no flights, just determination, connection, and the open road. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected challenges. Race Across the World is back. Bigger, bolder, and more emotional than ever. Because sometimes the best way to find yourself is to travel together. Race Across the World Season 4, Thursdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Don't blow your paycheck on high car insurance premiums when you could be saving with Outsurance. So how much does 35-year-old Zanai save?
A whopping 1,180 Rand.
That's an incredible 1,180 Rand monthly saving on Zanai's 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. Get a quote now and see how much Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
With Outsurance, I'm saving a whole 729 Rand.
729 Rand is a sweet saving on 32-year-old Parushka's 2020 Haval H2. And after 3 claim-free years, you get an out bonus.
Yes, I'm ready for that out bonus.
You also get benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance and loads more. Get a quote now and see how much money Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online. Limits apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SFM Radio.
Indeed we are. 14 minutes after 7. What are Julius Malema and Solima Paila cooking up? And could it shake the foundations of left-leaning politics in this country? The leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, and the SACP, a South African Communist Party, the leaders of those parties have held what they describe as a constructive bilateral meeting in Johannesburg, agreeing to establish a joint working group ahead of a planned conference of the left. The conference, set to take place before the 2026 local government elections, is aimed at uniting what they are calling progressive forces around a shared anti-capitalist program. Both parties say the cooperation is rooted in a shared overarching critique of the global capitalist system and a commitment to advancing economic emancipation while defending democratic gains. Let's hear from Mbulelo Mandlana, who is the South African Communist Party spokesperson. Good morning to you, Mbulelo, and thank you for your time. So answer the question for me then. What are your leaders cooking up?
I can tell you what the Communist Party is cooking up.
Okay.
The Communist Party in the Special Congress, the one that preceded the announcement for the Communist Party going into elections in its own name, among its resolutions said, we consider ourselves having a responsibility to build a large working class movement, a left front. And part of that work includes creating platforms for the working class organizations and left organizations to engage on the issues that are affecting the country. So this is one of those steps in building that program up. The EFF is one of the organizations we have contacted. We have, for example, held a session with the PAC. We have held sessions with community organizations, including the Bahlelbas and Jondolo, and so on and so forth. We are intending to have another bilateral with COSATU, and so on. So this is really the coming together of earlier, albeit lower level engagements. These are leadership engagements at this level. So this is what we are putting together, hoping that through our working group we will put together a much more comprehensive framework, preparing for the conference of the left.
With what end in sight? You surely are not doing this just for the sake of it. In electoral politics, and also the increasing talk on your part about contesting state power, that surely must be the end goal.
The end goal, of course, is to build a wider unity of South African political forces that are critical of the overall status quo in South African politics. And the Communist Party believes that that unity is urgent, because the unity of the people on the other side is also taking place quite fast. For example, the budget speech and the State of the Union of the Nation address that was delivered recently show that there are lots of moves to liberalize the economy. There are lots of moves for the ANC, for example, to have increasingly more to do with the people who are much more conservative, including, for example, the GNU and so on and so forth. Those things, when you look at them systematically and historically, you will realize that if they are not countered by a progressive consensus, they may drown South African politics in the sort of politics that we do not wish that South Africa can be characterized by. So in one way, we are working to unite working class forces in order to stand up to what we consider, in fact, what is a problem of the consolidation of right-wing politics that are even threatening the alliance. The alliance itself, as far as we are concerned, must be rooted in working class and left politics, because the ANC itself considers itself to be a disciplined force of the left.
So, Correct me if I'm wrong, Mbulelo. Wasn't there a time when you used to be critical of the EFF as the SACP? I seem to recall phrases such as populist demagoguery that were being bandied about and saying that basically this is all deceptive. They talk left, but if you analyze them properly, they are not a force of the left. Of course, they say there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies in politics, but you do need to grapple with that, don't you?
Of course, we're not guided by opportunistic perspectives, including the one that says no permanent friends and no permanent. That's an immoral position. That's not what guides us. Opportunism. No. While we critiqued the EFF at the time we did, we have never said we leave no room for engagement. We have never said there can never arise a context in which an engagement about changing South African politics as far as we can, where such a context will not also be possible. Criticism itself, when it takes place in parliamentary politics, should never always be interpreted as permanent exclusion of cooperation. It is true of the EFF as espousing left politics, and true of other progressive organizations that may not be necessarily socialist orientated in terms of their statements and their positions. But as the Communist Party, we are thinking at this time, there is a need to consider a wider and more uniting stance among the comrades that espouse the politics we espouse, and that such a conversation cannot be postponed on the basis of a memory of an earlier contest of views.
Lastly, Mbulelo, someone listening to this conversation may be asking whether, on your part as the SACP, part of what is happening now is informed by the dawning of realities, electoral contests that have not gone your way, that now suggest to you that you may need to do a bit more background work as you put to action the resolution that you've taken of contesting state power on your own, that you are realizing that the returns thus far have not been promising, and therefore you will need to strengthen your corner as much as possible. What do you say to that?
No, that would be minimizing and narrowing the basis of this engagement. In the discussions we're having with the EFF, the matter of planning and whatever forms of imagination about what to do about the upcoming local government elections or any other elections at a later time, that matter did not come up, simply because really the agenda of uniting the left goes beyond the dates and the events of elections. Of course, we know that it may affect what happens in elections, but that does not inform the nature and the substance of our engagement. In any case, this engagement would have happened even if, for example, the conference had resolved that we build a popular front and not yet decided that we go into elections directly. So the issue is that we are discussing in principle to reshape South African politics the best we can with the influence available at our disposal.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. We'll be watching closely those developments. That's Mbulelo Mandlana, who is South African Communist Party spokesperson.
In 2025, Liberty paid out 48 million rand in education cover claims to 755 families, meaning...
So many kids still went to school?
Correct.
Even when the dog ate their homework?
Yep.
What if it rained so hard that even fish needed raincoats?
School's still on.
But why?
Because there's no negotiation when it comes to protecting your child's tomorrow, even if you become disabled or pass away. Liberty, in it with you. Liberty Group Limited, a licensed life insurer and authorized FSP and part of the Standard Bank Group. T's and C's, risks and limitations apply.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says the newly unveiled statues of Nelson Mandela and Oliver Tambo in eThekwini are more than works of bronze. They are anchors of collective memory and promises made by a free people to themselves that they will not forget what it cost to be free. Speaking at North Beach yesterday, he argued that monuments of this nature preserve national heritage, affirm constitutional values, and ensure that the story of liberation remains embedded in the landscape of daily life, not confined to textbooks. But even as government frames the statues as investments in tourism and democratic memory in a year marking 30 years of the Constitution, critics are questioning whether the country is over-memorializing the same struggle icons while urgent social and governance crises mount. Let's speak to Angelo Fick, Director of Research at the Awal Socio-Economic Research Institute. Good morning to you, Angelo. It's good to talk to you. It's been a while. So just grapple with that question for me. I was listing the number of places where statues, in particular of Nelson Mandela, are situated, and busts and the likes. Before getting into that debate, is there any question about the value of memorializing icons, founders, and people who shaped and carved the history of the country in the form of statues? The value of that, is it in question at all?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have statues, but I think who you choose to have a statue of is interesting. It's also interesting, as you've just pointed out, how many statues of the same people we have, and how interesting it is that we tend to focus on the past, particularly in moments of present crisis. South Africa is undergoing a variety of challenges for its citizens and residents. It's interesting to hear the president say that, this is to make it publicly available so that it's not just stuck in textbooks. This is a country in which 8 out of 10 10-year-olds can't read for meaning, so it's not just stuck in textbooks. It's important for it to be in textbooks, for textbooks that children can read. Oliver Tambo was a teacher. The struggle for education was part of his, raison d'etre. So it's important for us to remember what people struggled for, so that these statues are not standing in a landscape over which they then look for things and look at things, if statues can look, that don't contain the very things that the people they're memorializing actually struggled for. And that, I think, is one of the tensions that one has with this endless return to memorializing, one, the same people, two, in statues, and then forgetting or deciding not to focus on the fact that there are issues in the very landscape these statues inhabit that were not part of the visions of the people we're now memorializing.
So when it comes to choosing who to memorialize, are we any clearer as to the ease or the difficulty of making that decision, the complexity thereof, given our complex history itself? Because, the Nelson Mandela statues, the list is quite long. But Oliver Tambo, not so much. Yeah, you've got, obviously, the memorializing of Oliver Tambo at the airport, quite central. And then now you have this in eThekwini. But I wonder, what are the factors we consider when we make these decisions about who to memorialize?
Well, we do tend to memorialize the men as so-called founders of the state we currently live in. I always find it interesting that we name airports after dead men, and we name the roads to those airports after dead women. But I think it is important to think back to the debates about Heroes Acre and which figures were going to be in that. And so, it becomes important to move beyond merely statues and roads and names to ask, what is it that we're telling? What stories is it we're telling our children, our children's children, and will 20 years from now people actually remember what these people stood for, other than the little plaques at the bottom, the names at the airport, the names on the roads? And my concern is that, the president's remark that this does not only belong in textbooks is a really odd moment to speak about a country that struggles with education and literacy and the outcomes and understandings. And as history is flattened out by one or two statues here and there, we tend to forget what those statues mean. Think of all those apartheid statues that remain around and the colonial statues. And if you ask people who General Louis Botha was or who Jan Smuts was, they may not be able to tell you very much about these people, except that they're figures from the past and from a particular period in history. And I think it's important to have substance in our response to an understanding of history, rather than just flattened out notions of one or two things I can tell you about Nelson Mandela, one or two things I can tell you about Oliver Tambo.
Do we, on the other hand, though, Angelo, risk not properly capturing in the landscape our history and its complexities in the interest of grappling with the here and now? I don't know if the question makes sense.
It does, but the irony is that the here and now does capture the problems of the past.
Yeah.
Our cities and towns remain unintegrated despite 30 years of a constitution. Very many poor black people still remain on the periphery. Those divisions created by colonialism and apartheid have not been undone by local government legislation, despite that being the very reason for local government legislation. The haves and have-nots still remain largely racialized as they were 30 years ago. So I think, our landscape does capture our past very well. The fact that we haven't undone it is, a blight on us. And we need to think of, when we put up these statues, the very visions of Oliver Tambo and of Nelson Mandela have not been realized by us, who are trying to memorialize them, in a landscape that actually shows up just how much of the past remains with us in the present. It's what Terry Bell and Dubiza Zvezda used to call the unfinished business of apartheid in a different context. The unfinished business of the past still remains with us in the very landscape we live in. The hours it takes people to get to and from work if they happen to be poor and black. Those conditions remain there. And so memorializing them with statues is just another step, but I think those have not disappeared. We need to address it so that those material realities disappear, such that the statues would then have more meaningful ways of marking the past.
All right, Angelo, I've got to thank you for your time. Always appreciate your insights. Angelo Fick is Director of Research at the Awal Socio-Economic Research Institute. Let's go to Ann Musa, standing by with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Member of Parliament and National Coloured Congress leader Fadil Adams will be in the hot seat when he appears before Parliament's ad hoc committee today. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi accused him of having access to classified information. Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekota has died. His family has confirmed his death at the age of 77. Lekota had stepped back from active politics last year to focus on his health. And President Cyril Ramaphosa has conceded there has been backlash to the 22 million rand spent on new statues of anti-apartheid leaders Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela in Durban. Some residents and opposition parties say the money should have been spent on delivering basic services. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Straight down to Durban for our top story this morning. If you're just joining us, good morning. It's the cash in transit heist incident, which has closed the N2 southbound from the M7 going down towards the Higginson Highway. So the event there unfolding earlier this morning opposite the cement factory. So it's the N2 southbound. Very, very major, significant local impact on traffic flow. As you can imagine, the N2 south being closed and largely motorists having to duck off at the M7 and sit in some crazy traffic there trying to get off the highway into the M7, which is congested from North Dean, North Park, all the way down through Malvern, down to Bel Air at Wakesley. There's some real problems further down with the M7 then congested down to South Coast Road as an alternative route. M7, if you're Pinetown bound, out from Titran towards the N2, heavy disruption there as well. And routes between Malvern and Bel Air, if you like, are just crazy gridlocked. I've put a real-time traffic congestion map up on our Twitter feed at Traffic SA. You can have a look at how bad that traffic is. You can understand why, because the M2 South being closed and everybody scrambling for alternative routes. The M4 Southern Freeway not missing out on the impact there. That's heavy this morning coming up through Clarewood and Jacobs. Motorists are diverting that way just to avoid the drama on the N2. South Coast Road through that Clarewood and Rossborough and Jacobs area, very heavy as well. Major delays just south of Durban. Joburg side, the Mike 1 very heavy as you route up towards Sandton. There's queues from Gold Reef City without a gap right through to Grayston Drive. Roadworks M3 north at Funbury and still cutting and causing problems. And a lot of congestion just south of Mamelodi and Pretoria. There's been what could possibly be a cash in transit heist incident or just an overturned cash van. It's happened on Bronkhorststraat Road, just west of the Solomon Mishlangu Junction. So very heavy disruption there as well. And Cape Town, we saw this yesterday, seeing it again this morning. Certainly worth a mention. The N7 Jakes Herville heavy into the roadworks at Viking Way in Epping. Viking Way coming through from Elsie's River. Very heavy through that Epping area towards the N7 congestion. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. The juggernaut that is the Proteas marches on at the T20 World Cup. Next up to be crushed, New Zealand. But there's a warning against complacency.
Good morning, Thulas. Absolutely. And I think our captain, Aiden Markram, is talking with the bat and the ball. He's been incredible. And when he's averaging what he's averaging, you know it's a dangerous competition that's ahead. But yeah, Proteas fans are starting to believe this juggernaut. So let's get into it with the match happening today. It's a semi-final clash against New Zealand in Kolkata. The skipper has scored 268 runs in 7 matches, averaging 53.6 with an explosive strike rate of 175. Despite the form, Markram insisting the Proteas' success has been a team effort and is looking forward to this limited overs World Cup title that they are chasing. Now let's go to soccer action last night. Richards Bay securing their first Betway Premiership victory of 2026, beating Kaizer Chiefs 1-0 at the Umhlatuze Sports Complex last night. Amakosi made 6 changes following their Soweto derby disappointment, but the reshuffle failed to spark a response. In the other match, TS Galaxy's poor run continued. They suffered a 5th straight Betway Premiership defeat, losing 2-1 to Orbit College at Mbombela Stadium. Siwelele FC and Stellenbosch FC played to a goalless draw at the Free State Stadium, missing the opportunity to break into the league's top 8. In the meantime, Mamelodi Sundowns will host Stade Malien in the first leg of their CAF Champions League quarter-final at Loftus Versfeld on Friday, which is March 13th. Kickoff set for 8 p.m. The return leg will be played in Bamako on the 22nd of March. Sundowns are the last South African team remaining in continental competition and faced a Mali side enjoying a breakthrough campaign after topping Group D and stunning Esperance. Now, the FIFA World Cup 2026 will take center stage from the 11th of June to the 19th of July, and SABC Sport will bring the tournament to audiences live across multiple platforms. And finally, rugby. Springbok attack coach Tony Brown believes the young fly half Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu may have taken on too much responsibility for the Stormers recently. Speaking ahead of the National Alignment Camp in Cape Town, Brown admitted the 23-year-old has been error-prone in recent weeks, but stressed that his quality remains unquestioned and he will get the support from teammates, which will help him rediscover his form. That's your sport. We'll be back in form. That's at the top of the hour. I'm Zaikan.
The business update on SAFM.
Dowling, good morning to you once again. Let's start in retail. Tell me about ShopRite. You're saying they're continuing to gain market share. What's that looking like?
Well, this comes as the group continues to double down on affordability to less, and it's starting to show in its numbers. The retailer grew sales 7.2% to 136.8 billion rand in the 6 months to December, adding more than 9 billion rands to its total revenue. But profit before tax edged slightly lower, highlighting the cost of keeping prices down in a high-pressure consumer environment. Company CEO Peter Engelbrecht says basic staples like rice, maize, and potatoes fell by as much as 40 to 50%, offering relief to lower-income households, particularly shoppers at ShopRite and USafe. This came at a cost, though, as expenses are rising faster than prices. Investment in new stores, distribution centers, and higher finance charges are weighing on the company's margins. Still, the strategy appears to be winning market share. 60/60 surged nearly 35%, and the group lifted its interim dividend, signaling confidence in cash flow even as margins tighten.
And tell me about Sea Harvest, watching what's happening with the oil price quite closely. I imagine they're not the only company and producers to be watching it.
That's right, Thulas. And as earnings season continues to pick up, we've been hearing from big business starting to assess the impact of the conflict in the Middle East. Sea Harvest, one of them, saying that rising oil prices present a margin risk. That's as fuel is a major cost input. Management has flagged that recent energy market volatility could pressure profitability given vessels' reliance on diesel while operating at sea. However, the impact isn't one-dimensional. A higher catch rate, meaning vessels are catching fish more quickly and efficiently, can soften the blow. When boats fill their quotas faster, they spend fewer days at sea, burn less fuel overall, and reduce the cost per ton caught. In that way, strong fishing conditions can effectively offset some of the pressure from elevated oil prices. Now, the company's comments come alongside its record annual earnings, where headline earnings per share nearly quadrupled and revenue increased 20%. Now, this was supported by improved hake catches, firmer export pricing, and tighter cost control. In addition, the balance sheet also strengthened with debt reduced by 417 million rand.
Lastly, Dowling, how are we looking on the markets this morning?
It's a sea of red across the Asian markets, with stocks tumbling for a third consecutive day. Japan's Nikkei is leading the losses, down nearly 4%, as investors monitor escalating tensions between the US and Iran. The conflict also rattling Wall Street, with futures pointing lower as investors push back expectations for rate cuts amid concerns that higher energy prices could stoke inflation. Speaking of energy, oil continues its upward march, gaining 1.4% this hour to trade close to $80 a barrel. And then coming back home, the JSE suffered its ninth worst day since the global financial crisis, with the all share dropping 5% as a sell-off in precious metals and a broad risk-off mood weighed on the market. The rand also under pressure, trading at 16.59 to the dollar, 22.08 to the pound, and 19.24 to the euro.
All right, Ndawling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you one more time just after 8:30, and as she always does, Ndawling, in that update, will give you a sense of where the markets will likely go on this Wednesday.
Get Spar Super Savings at every store, in every aisle, every day. Like 2-ply Spar toilet rolls, 18s for 94.99. Save 25 rand. Or Huggies Dry Comfort Nappies or Nappy Pants, Jumbo Pack, including Gold Value Pack. Buy any two for 320 rand. Save 64 rand. Now that's super savings. Prices valid from the 23rd of February till 8 March. While stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connect you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News is weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up. This February, love the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. They were called accidents, a slip, a fall, a tragic mistake. But what if they weren't? Fatal fall, murder or accident investigates suspicious deaths. From balconies, staircases and cliffs. Where one question refuses to go away. Did someone push them? Through forensic science and haunting testimony, the truth is uncovered. Fatal fall, murder or accident. Tuesdays 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
I'm loving how you are engaging with the topics we've raised this morning. In fact, the main one being the issues around the statues and who we choose to memorialize in that way. A lot of you wanting to weigh in on that. So let me start with those right away.
Thulas, how are you? There is another statue of Nelson Mandela at Mandela Village, Hammanskraal. So yeah, there's so many of them.
Good morning, Thulas and the team. Good show as always. Thulas, on your question on whether we are striking a balance on memorializing all the striking icon, the answer is no, Thulas. All we see, Thulas, is Nelson Mandela everywhere, Thulas. But that's not the problem, Thulas. We need to see Sobukwe, we need to see Steve Biko, and other struggling icon, Thulas. That's my take. BK, thank you.
BK, thank you. I agree with you. And I think that really strikes at the heart of it. Yes, Nelson Mandela was a towering figure and an icon. Without a doubt, there is absolutely no debate as far as that is concerned. And yes, he should be remembered. But the balance that you're talking about is what we need, including people that didn't necessarily follow the strand of politics that dominated the struggle for liberation, but people who were significant enough, who made a significant enough contribution to attaining this democratic dispensation that we have. And I think I've said this before. I'm a fan of how Washington in the United States has done their memorials, and you've got the Washington Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, and there's quite a lot littered around. And I think much of the work done by, I've said before, the Smithsonian Institutes, well, that was before it all became quite contested politically, which it is now, some of that work and what it memorializes, and the President of the United States not being happy. But before this period, when I went to Washington, I was quite impressed with how they will capture an icon, not just with a statue, but actually the story comes alive in those memorials around Washington. I'm a big fan of that, but that's just me. Let me take this one also on the statues and struggle icons.
Morning, Thulasizwe. I was in Crawfordette last week and went to the so-called Robert Sobukwe Museum, which is just in the community surrounding Crawfordette, and I was very disappointed to see that the statue that was meant to be unveiled several years ago is still wrapped in plastic. The gates to the complex are locked up. The beautiful mural, there's a couple of tiles falling off. So I don't think we're doing too well in celebrating our other struggle icons. So maybe we need to start focusing on that as well. Have a great day. Regards.
Thank you for that. Did you hear Angelo Fick talking about how we put statues to men who are struggle icons, and then we name highways to those statues and those areas like the airport after women? So Albertina Sisulu Highway leads you to OR Tambo International Airport. I thought that was quite an interesting one, an observation. But also the other point that you make about incomplete work to memorialize and celebrate part of our history. I wonder what became of the project is it Brantford, the Winnie Mandela house, and that work that was being done there. There's quite a number of these. Some of them actually are to painful memory, but you preserve painful memory, don't you? So that future generations can always come back. Years ago, I went to the area where Vlakplaas was, and the state that it's in. I thought we would want to keep that memory alive, to say never again. I don't know. I was not impressed when I went to Vlakplaas years ago. And that's just one of, and another one quickly to share. When I went to Lobatse in Botswana, the people I interviewed there were saying to me, your ANC people, this is where they held their first, this house, and they were showing, this is the house where they held their first meeting after the banning of the ANC and whatever. And we've been engaging and saying, come, let's preserve it, let's preserve it. And then someone bought the house and demolished it. So now it can't be preserved. And this guy was describing how all these luminaries were in this house, and it was pity of iconic names at that first conference. I don't know for a fact, okay? I must just say now. But this is what these people were telling me in Botswana to say. Your people don't know how to preserve history. Quick update with Rob. I'll come back with more of your voice notes and calls.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And as they say, where there is a pity, you must evaluate, and I'm glad that you did. Good morning, everybody. Our top story, the N2 South closure still with us in Durban, closed between the M7 Bluff exit and the M1 Higginson Highway off-ramp. That's due to this morning's cash in transit heist. I can't see that the N2 North is officially closed, but there's quite a big backlog of traffic coming out the N2 from Prospecton and then splitting along the M4. So the Southern Freeway absolutely chock-a-block this morning. So definitely southbound closed. You may get there, and they may have closed the northbound. So I tell you, the other big impact is the M7 from North D, North Park, through that closed N2 ramp and down to Bel Air, Wakesley. Then more congestion down through Roxburgh on that section of the M7 to South Coast Road. It's all heavily backed up. The M7 into the N2 if you're leaving from Titran Road. That's really bad as well. And just impossible traffic to work through from Malvern through to Bel Air, Sarnia, Wakesley, those sort of routes. The main road, really horrible traffic in that area just south of the M7. And it's all the impact of that cash in transit heist and the closure of that N2 going south. Just onto the northbound side, as we said, unsure if it's technically closed, but that queue coming in from Prospecton is quite a bad one onto the M4 North, so Southern Freeway under pressure as well. There's also been an incident involving a cash van in Pretoria. It's on the Bronkhorstspruit Road, just on the western side of Solomon Mhlanga. So there's a lot of disruption south of Mamelodi around that scene as well. The N1 from Brockfontein down to New Road is the N1 south damage through Midrand this morning. Roadworks continue on the N3 at Heldon. Don't forget that. Queuing traffic out of Alberton and Germiston. It'll be like that every morning while those roadworks remain in place. And some work's going on the N17 at Wits Rifle. So if you're in from Brackbound and Springs, that's very slow as well. Cape Town, a lot of congestion around Newlands, and Claremont, the main road, is heavy. Campground Road through Rondebosch very tight. And we saw this yesterday, seeing it again today. N7 North from Vangate Mall up through Lunga in towards Epping into those roadworks at Viking Way. Something's changed there in the last 24, 48 hours. N7 North under pressure, and Viking Way in from Elsie's through Epping towards the N7. Really big backlogs as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Bavarians are loving life at the summit and are highly spirited to keep their grip on the top spot. Standing in their way are the Foles, eager to climb the table and spoil the party. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Do not miss Bayern München versus Borussia Mönchengladbach on Friday, 6 March at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connects you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News airs weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take some calls. Let me start with Lord in Alberton. Good morning to you, Lord.
Good morning, my brother. Are you well?
Very well. How are you?
Good, man.
Mm-hmm.
No,
What's on your mind?
Yeah. I try not to mispronounce your name, and then I'll call you Thulas. Unlike a minister who kept on calling you Thulasizwe. But the weekend, I was not impressed.
Tulani, or Tumelani, or Thulisani.
Oh, yes. All those names. No. Allow me to digress a bit, my brother, and pick up on one of the subtopics that is ventilated with your colleague, Samkelo Masek, in the week ahead show.
Yes.
It is about the instability in the city of Ekurhuleni under the mayorship of Nkosazana Gagaza. We can see that the city is in a dire state, and it is in turmoil, for a lack of a better way, because this city, it has a regret in terms of providing basic needs to the communities. But this is one element that I want to raise, that the provincial leadership under the PTT, Comrade Panyaza and Comrade Opapo, they seem to be completely hamstrung in terms of intervening, if one can postulate towards that side. Yes, and the last one is that the ANC, even in this city of Ekurhuleni, they must be cognizant of the fact that we are governing on borrowed time, and we are trading on a tightrope.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate that we are running towards the local government, local elections, and then something is not being done. I won't be surprised, my brother, if we lose the support, since the what we can call service delivery is in a dire state in the city of Ekurhuleni. I wish the leadership from the provincial level are listening. They have to intervene in Ekurhuleni because things are completely out of order.
All right, Lord, thank you for that. If they don't hear you, I wonder who will they hear. That's direct, straight from the heart, Lord, out in Alberton, worried about the state of governance in the city of Ekurhuleni. Actually, Lord reminds me, it's one of the notes that I had made in my mind to say we need to revisit that, the situation around those municipalities that have not been able to adopt their budgets for one reason or another. Ekurhuleni being a prime example, the resignation of the speaker, the resignation of an MMC who's also in the leadership in the region for the ANC, a reshuffle that was undertaken naming an Action SA councillor, Xolani Khumalo, who then said, and Action SA were like, what are you doing? The EFF saying that we are not going to be continuing to participate in this arrangement. They don't call it a coalition. I can't remember the exact phrase that they use. But yeah, we need to revisit that story. Gavin in Noordhoek, good morning.
Morning, Thulas. How are you today?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thulas, who we are is who we were. I taught that in the history class for 30 years, that you could take every single day's newspaper headline and you could trace it back to our history. I think today's youth are so caught up in the moment for understandable reasons that they may run with any new narrative and lose track of what it is that we are as a nation, which came from who we are.
Yes, absolutely. Gavin?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So you're making the point that who we are today is shaped by our past. Is that the point you're making?
Yeah, so I'm actually in favor of memorializing people. But,
Yes.
but Thulas, our history extends further back than the last 80 years.
Yes.
And I understand the urgency to memorialize where we've come to as a nation, going through apartheid to a new democratic dispensation. But there are great South Africans from hundreds of years ago. I mean, I'm going to argue that Moshiuoa was a statesman of international repute, but he's somehow lost because he's not in the urgency of the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah. So in a way, we'd need to be approaching it in phases, right? Phases of history, that is. And that's why I keep going back to what they did in Washington.
Yes.
In that you will see the evolution of the United States in some of the statues and memorials that are there. Okay, I get the point you're making. Kevin, thank you for calling in. That's Kevin in Noordhoek talking about the issue of statues. In fact, let me take a few of those. There's one here that I think will significantly elevate the debate, will get a lot of people talking.
Morning, Thulas Lukman, Cape Town. Excellent show as always. With regarding the statues, number one is the disgrace after eThekwini is without water, crumbling in stuck. It's just the ANC must just go. Number two, why is always black leaders? Where's the white struggle icons? Where's the colored struggle icons? Where's the Indian struggle icon? Is it only black? Was it only black liberators? Only black people were fighting for freedom. Only black people dying for fighting for freedom. This thing must stop, man. Call a spade a spade.
Yeah, all right. So that's what I'm talking about. That diversity. You need to be structured, I think. Structured and intentional about how you're going to do this, because you do run the risk of marginalizing various strands of our society that will say, where's our story? Why is our story not being told as part of the story of South Africa, the story of how we got here? take that point 100%.
Hi, Tulas. Regarding the topic on statues, maybe it's time as a country that we move away from memorializing the struggle icons. I do believe that we have done a great job on that. But the other people who've done great things for the country, be it in art, be it in science, maybe it's time we look into that.
Yebo.
Maqaba in Cape Town.
I agree 100%. And I've made the point that the people who are our heroes are not just politicians think politicians think the world starts and ends with them. Ne? So we are here thanks to the politicians. Forget all of these other people that have done a great deal of work to unite us as a society, to build the nation. You will not see them memorialized. Even sites that objectively you look at it and you say, this thing should have been named. I know we're not fans of naming things after people while they're still alive, but this should be called Neil Tovey Street. You know? This should be Neil Tovey Street. You can see the street leading to, I don't know, the FNB Stadium. Yeah, anyway, Ilana Meyer Road or something. I don't know. And Musa standing by with the latest news.
Outsurance Essential is made for older cars. Claims are paid in cash within 5 working days, and you choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
In our top stories, Fadil Adams to appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee, and pregnancy leads to changes in the mother's brain. Good morning. Member of Parliament and National Coloured Congress leader Fadil Adams will be in the hot seat when he appears before Parliament's ad hoc committee today. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi accused him of having access to classified information. A former director of public prosecutions in Gauteng will also testify today. One of the men currently on trial for the killing of Mosiuoa is expected back on the witness stand in the High Court in Pretoria today. Yesterday, Bongani Ntanzi was unable to account for the phone calls he had made to his girlfriend while he was in police custody. He and 4 others are charged with the killing of the former Bafana Bafana captain in October of 2014. State Prosecutor George Baloyi questioned Ntanzi about the circumstances surrounding communication with his girlfriend, referred to as Lebu. Ntanzi again claimed that police had been in possession of his phone during his incarceration.
So, Mr. Ntanzi, are you saying that Lebu's number communicated with your number ending 6890 for those 2 incoming calls from Lebu, around 800 seconds? It's a combined time of about 13 minutes. I say that in those 13 minutes, the caller with the number of Lebu spoke to someone other than you for a combined period of 13 minutes.
I still stand by what I said, that my phone was with Mapena and Mokgane.
Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekota has died. His family has confirmed his death at the age of 77. Lekota had stepped back from active politics last year to focus on his health. This led to the appointment of Tebogo Luate as the interim leader of COPE. Lekota is a former high-ranking ANC member. He served as the first Free State Premier from 1994 to 1996 and as the Defence Minister from 1999 to 2008. President Cyril Ramaphosa has conceded there has been backlash to the 22 million rand spent on new statues of anti-apartheid leaders Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela in Durban. The 10-meter bronze statues were unveiled yesterday. Some residents and opposition parties say the money should have been spent on delivering basic services. But Ramaphosa says the statues play an important role in preserving the country's liberation history. He was speaking in Durban.
We unveil these statues knowing that people from across our country and across the world will come to see them. our mayor has said they become a great tourism attraction. Our city manager has said, yes, there were 1.2 million visitors who came to Durban in the past season, and we want 1.5 million. I would say we want double the number that he's projecting. That's what we want. eThekwini is one of the premier tourist destinations in our country, and we can anticipate that these statues will contribute to exceptional growth in tourism.
And finally, scientists in Spain say they've identified changes influencing how women bond with their babies. They are studying how women's brains are altered during pregnancy. The study involves MRI brain scans on 127 women before, during and after pregnancy. Grey matter appears to dip in quantity when women are pregnant before increasing again 6 months after childbirth. Professor Susanna Kamona is one of the researchers leading the study.
I know it sounds like a bad thing, but it does not necessarily need to be a bad thing, as in the brain, as in life. Sometimes less is better. We usually use the metaphor of a tree in which you have a lot of branches and you start pruning some of the branches so the tree can grow up through the main one, the more important ones.
Recapping the top story, Member of Parliament and National Coloured Congress leader Fadil Adams will be in the hot seat when he appears before Parliament's ad hoc committee today. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi accused him of having access to classified information. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Theft, accident, and 1 million rand third-party cover for your older car. Outsurance Essential has it all. Get a quote. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
Proud of your DIY skills? Prouder that your car is paid off? Well, with Outsurance Essential car insurance, you could be saving too. 31-year-old Sandile pays only 481 rand a month for his 2015 Chevrolet utility. And there's no upfront excess payable, no unexpected out-of-pocket payments. Get Outsurance Essential car insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Cricket, the Proteas facing New Zealand in the T20 World Cup semi-final in Kolkata today. South Africa aiming to extend their unbeaten run. And in rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus says the global game is heading for stability. Let's bring you the details around 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Our top traffic story, the cash in transit heist just south of Durban, closing the N2 southbound from the M7 Bluff exit down to the Higginson Highway. Full closure of all lanes going south, and some crazy traffic around this sort of Queensborough, Malvern, Bel Air area. The M7 down towards Wakesley Road, queues from North to Dean, North Park, Ruth Laxania, Wakesley, the main road through Malvern, all very heavily disrupted. M7 again queuing through Rossborough on the alternative route. So a lot of pressure just south of Durban. Even the Southern Freeway inbound is quite heavy this morning from Clarewood Jacobs, that side right through Umbillo on your way into central Durban. Truck crash just south of Escort, causing some big delays on the Durban bound carriageway if you're stuck in traffic. Roadworks and that collision this morning. Joburg N3 North, roadworks at Heldene, so stays heavy coming out of Germiston and Alberton areas today. The N14 on your way to Pretoria, crash at Eupheus Road causing some disruption, and Block XX, Mopani Highway, earlier crash here slowing traffic out of Shoshanguve this morning. Cape Town, the N7, again, really heavy this morning. The roadworks have changed up. N7 North at Viking Way in Epping. Heavy coming up from Langa. Viking Way from Elsie's across into the N7 is really badly backed up as well. And again, another morning of pretty heavy traffic around Stickland, Strand Road, Van Riebeek out of Kales River, and LaBelle and Bottleray, all very slow going. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8. Welcome to it, the third hour of the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Always great being with you in the morning. Let me do what I always do around this time, reflecting on some of the messages that have been coming through on the WhatsApp line. And I can tell you now, it's a buzz. It's a buzz with activity. So let me quickly run through as many as I possibly can. TG says, so Thulasizwe, SAFM does not even say a word about the stalwart against apartheid, but we are talking about criminals like Satan Yahoo and Trumpet, and this is a disgrace as Comrade Terra played a critical role in our liberation. TG, I respect your views as always, but respectfully, SAFM has been reporting on the passing on of Mosiuoa Lekota. In fact, I reported it. I talked about it right at the start of the show as breaking news. It's been in the headlines. Sometimes it takes a while to then get the voices that you want on air that will give various perspectives. It's not some people are just hearing about it now. So, it takes some time to filter through. So all I'll say is hang in there. Throughout the day, you are guaranteed to hear more being said about Patrick Terra Mosiuoa Lekota. In fact, speaking about that, someone else sending a message. It's rather long when Zola Edwana from Duduza. What I will do is read as much of it as possible, your tribute to Mosiuoa Lekota, but I obviously can't read all of it. So Zola Edwana in Duduza says, it is with sadness to learn of the passing on of Patrick Terra Lekota. We will remember him during the days of the United Democratic Front and at the height of the civic associations around the country that were protesting against the apartheid black local municipalities. He also led a march in Sharpeville that was organized by the Sharpeville Civic Association that resulted in the number of apartheid in the murder of apartheid mayor Dlamini. He was arrested with other community leaders of Sharpeville and charged with treason in a trial that became known as the famous Delmas treason trial. He was acquitted and the others were sentenced to death and were pardoned during the Truth Commission. One of our own from Duduza, the late Moleko Tsagane, testified in defense of the accused, and a good testimony about, among others, the civic associations and the purpose because the state wanted to portray civic associations as organizations of murderers, and because of his testimony, to a certain extent, civic associations were not banned. So that's part of what Zola Edwana in Duduza has had to say about Mosiuoa Lekota. Then Noma Temba on the issue of statues says, hi Thulas, we as income in capital letters, income taxpayers are tired of expenditure with no benefits, from statues to people traveling with their partners. And then someone else, it's Sipo. Sipo says, you cannot give responsibility for our heritage to non-South Africans, even if they are legal. What interest do they have in preservation of it? That's the question that Sipo is asking. Then someone else says, the eThekwini statues have nothing to do with memorializing our anti-apartheid struggle history or economics, but the ANC versus MK party politics. The desperate ANC hopes the statues will help win it back the KZN voters from the MKP, is a take from someone there who sent that message. Lastly, Nati in Cape Town. I saved this one for last. Nati in Cape Town, when I was talking about possible preservation of heritage, including painful heritage, I mentioned Vlakplaas and said, I was just appalled at the state in which it is, because I believe a lot of people died there, and you kind of need to keep it to remind history, posterity, that, remember the dark days and the ugly scenes, what we've done to one another. So to my suggestion, Nati in Cape Town says, Thulas, who will be a security guard working night shift at Vlakplaas, given what happened there over the years? I still believe in ghosts, Mnashem, says Nati. So Nati definitely not going to be volunteering his services as far as that is concerned. Yeah, so let's keep the conversation going. The number to dial 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. In the next few minutes, we'll be talking about this challenge that is taking place in the Western Cape Division of the High Court. It's challenging a section of the Criminal Procedure Act that has to do with making it illegal to name a person accused in a rape or sexual offense before they have pleaded, and that is being brought into challenge. William Bird is my guest up next.
This February, love the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. They were called accidents, a slip, a fall, a tragic mistake. But what if they weren't? Fatal fall, murder or accident investigates suspicious deaths from balconies, staircases and cliffs, where one question refuses to go away. Did someone push them? Through forensic science and haunting testimony, the truth is uncovered. Fatal fall, murder or accident. Tuesdays 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The Bavarians are loving life at the summit and are highly spirited to keep their grip on the top spot. Standing in their way are the foes, eager to climb the table and spoil the party. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Do not miss Bayern München versus Borussia Mönchengladbach on Friday, 6 March at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SFM Radio.
16 minutes after 8, a constitutional battle over who gets to speak and who must remain silent in sexual offense cases is unfolding before the Western Cape Division of the High Court. At the center of the case is Section 154, subsection 2 and paragraph B of the Criminal Procedure Act, which makes it a criminal offense to name a rape or sexual offense accused before they have formally pleaded, carrying a penalty of up to 3 years in prison. The gender-based violence activist Caroline Peters, supported by the Women's Legal Center, is challenging the provision after she was charged for identifying a rape accused on social media while supporting a survivor in court. Her lawyers argue the law is a relic of a time when women were silenced and misogynistic men's reputations were protected, and that it disproportionately punishes survivors and advocates in a country grappling with endemic violence against women. But the Minister of Justice insists the temporary naming ban is necessary to protect victims and preserve trial fairness, setting up a high-stakes test of how the country balances open justice, freedom of expression, and the rights of the accused. It's a mouthful, what I've just said. William Bird, Director of MOXIE Africa, previously known as Media Monitoring Africa, joins me now. Good morning to you, William, and thank you for your time. So just your own reflections of what's at stake in that case out in the Western Cape Division. The media is always grappling with at what point do we name a suspect, but the nuances are even deeper when you are talking sexual offenses and rape.
Yeah, exactly. So generally speaking, unless there's a child involved, the media do go ahead and name people. You know, Oscar Pistorius was named shortly after he murdered his partner. And you find that in certain instances, for example, Jacob Zuma in his rape trial, he was named well ahead of being charged. So there are clear instances where you may either argue that there's an overwhelming public interest or that there are other circumstances, but our media certainly hasn't abided by this law always. Another example, Nicholas Nino, the man who was accused of sexually assaulting a child in a restaurant, was also named before he was charged even. So there are various instances where these things. At issue for us is about the people, the public, and the media being able to report on these issues in a way that respects the dignity of all involved, whether it's the accused or whether it's particularly the victims and survivors of sexual offences. Now, what you've got is this particular law that says not only that you can't name the accused, in fact, once the charges have been laid, you then can't give away any information or details. So, in fact, the woman survivor, for example, would not be able to say, I want to tell my story, I want to identify myself. So at the moment, as it stands, she's not even empowered to do that. So this really is a quite overwhelmingly broad section of the Criminal Procedure Act. But what we saw yesterday in court, because we had the first day of argument yesterday, was that the judges were saying pretty much, look here, this is a temporary ban. And it's there because if someone is falsely accused, then their reputation is damaged beyond repair almost. And so this is why they think it may be justifiable. And of course, the counter to that is to say, well, it's a ban that's in place until they plead, so it's not forever. And then just because they then plead, it doesn't make sense for them to then suddenly be named. So I think that there are a range of issues and concerns with how the judges themselves are seeing this. But we'll see today. Court starts again in about an hour's time, and we'll see what happens today.
Yeah. Does this ban make sense in the bigger context where in other crimes, as soon as a person has appeared in court and has been charged, they can be named immediately after that? Why this delay, knowing in our country that getting to the point of a plea, of entering a plea, which marks the start of the trial, can take years, and also grappling with the issues that we are grappling with of high incidence of gender-based violence, and the need and growing activism around it, and the agency of women and other activists in pushing back against it?
I mean, it doesn't make sense, frankly. When you look at so if you look at children, they're the most special protected group. They've got levels of protection in our law. And in fact, part of the arguments that we were involved in this was an amendment to a very closely related section of this Criminal Procedure Act relating to children. So what you wanting to find is a balance between open justice, between media being able to tell the stories of what's going on, and at the same time respecting the privacy and dignity and identity of those involved. Now, if we can do it for children, you can be sure we can do it for adults as well. As it stands, if, for example, a person X is charged with a sexual offense, and the woman involved wants to reveal her identity, she can't. As it stands, the media, if they found out about that, wouldn't even be able to report any of the details without being in breach of that, let alone naming or identifying any of the people. Now, that in our constitutional framework is just simply irrational and overbroad, and that's why we are challenging that, because it must be consistent with our democratic principles.
How do you grapple with the argument that says it's all about protecting the identity of the victims and survivors in these incidents, and that in many instances there's some kind of a relationship between the alleged perpetrator and the victim, in that in identifying the perpetrator, you will inadvertently give hints and clues that may identify the victim?
So again, that's dealt with in cases where we deal with minors, where again, if you're going to reveal information that may reveal the identity of a child, so if it's a parent or a close family relative that's involved, then you won't be able to name them. And I imagine that in this instance, if, for example, you were to abuse your partner, and it was known that she was known, and it says your partner abused you, then clearly, and the woman doesn't want to be identified, then that would not be okay. So it's very much dependent on being victim survivor oriented. So if she says, I want to come out and and tell people my story, and I need to tell this, and I want to be identified, then it shouldn't preclude you then from identifying the person who's then charged with that egregious offense.
All right, William, let's see how it unfolds. Do you also get the sense that whatever the outcome, it's still got some way to go within our superior courts?
Yep, I mean, it's a constitutional challenge, so it's almost certainly going to end. Next step will probably be the Supreme Court and then off to Braamfontein.
All right, thank you for that. William Bird, Director of Moxie Africa, previously known as Media Monitoring Africa.
Bafana are preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted by the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico from 11 June to 19 July 2026. Bafana will host 2 international friendlies against Panama on Friday, 27 March in Durban at the Moses Mabhida Stadium at 7 p.m. and Tuesday, 31 March in Cape Town at the DHL Stadium at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 80 Rand for adults and 50 Rand for children under 12. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
The Cottagers are confident they will control the tempo at home and move the ball with purpose.
And now it's a chance for Raul. Is that handball? It's in the net. Raul Jimenez has done it again.
Meanwhile, the Hammers arrive with power, pace and extra edge to conquer the London derby.
Going forward towards Sojek! It's Thomas Sojek for West Ham United, not long after half-time.
This is the Premier League. Be part of the derby that never disappoints. Fulham FC versus West Ham United on Wednesday, 4 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
When music meets nature, something unforgettable happens. Symphony by the Water, a world-class live music experience set against the breathtaking beauty of Midmar Dam, featuring the KZN Philharmonic Orchestra, Spogazi, the Black Lapels, Saturday, the 7th of March, 2026. Day tickets from 150, evening tickets from 350. Tickets available at WebTicket and Pick and Pay. Symphony by the Waters, where sound flows. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, let me take a few of your voice notes that have been coming through. Someone wants to talk about the EFF, SACP, and MK party. I wonder what that is all about.
Morning to us. It's Mandla here in Bushaka. SACP, EFF, MK, ATM, if they join, they would make a better party. They would make a better movement. They say if you can't beat them, join them. If someone is doing better than you, don't try to bring that person down, but work with him so you can know how they do it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mandla, thank you for that. I wonder, though, if there are enough commonalities in terms of ideology, ideas about, which direction to go, trajectory, and heading between those parties. SACP, EFF, you can almost readily see it. Then you add the MK party. There are elements of commonality, but I don't know if they go far enough for them to be able to forge a cohesive platform, right? Do they have enough that they agree on? They agree on some things. There's no question about it. But I wonder, the EFF and the SACP gauge that actually they have quite a lot that they agree upon. And then those things that they don't agree on, I suppose they believe that they can always work those out. But I hear the point you're making. If they were to be able to find a way, all those parties you mentioned, the ATM thrown in there, yeah, definitely. That's a formidable political force.
Morning, Thulasizwe. I think what Solomon Paile and CIC did over the weekend is super. It's long overdue, in fact. They're supposed to do this thing long ago. That's why some of us were worried about EFF, MK, ATM, and others who doesn't want to do these things, because the current government, the current party, which is leading the government, they sold us out. There's nothing we'll get. We'll remain where we are as black people. Samson for Sluras.
Yeah, Samson, thank you for that. Let me go to the other ones that have to do with the statues, memorials, collective history, and memory of all of us as a nation.
Hey, Tulas, just for my own education, a memorial, is it done for someone who has passed away or someone who's alive? Because recently, I think last year, I saw a J. Trump and Kennedy memorial something. And J. Trump is alive, is bombing the world. But then, please, man, an expert to tell us, when do you do a memorial? Thanks, Bongi here.
Bongi, thank you for that. Well, I chuckle because Donald J. Trump is a unique, is a special case. Let's call it that, right? It seems the tradition is that you only memorialize people once they've passed on. But I've gotten the sense over time that there are certain people around whom we can agree that even before they pass on, they reach a point where you and I know that this person is someone great, and the likelihood that this person will come back and disappoint us. Yeah, well, we can't bet on a person. You'd never know what may happen. But there are people that you just know that at this point, it is safe to honor this person. The late George Bezos, by the time he passed on, I don't think anyone could debate the role that he had played in our history. So Donald J. Trump, different story. Angaz. The whole memorializing of Trump, that's Kennedy Center, Trump Kennedy Center, was way before I visited the United States and was impressed by some of what they do there. 8:30. And Musa, we should name a studio after N Musa.
Okay, Thulas, please do.
Yeah, live from the N Musa studios.
Please do.
At Radio Park.
Good morning. In the headlines, the Road Freight Association has expressed deep concern on the latest fuel price hike following the escalating violence in the Middle East. The price of both grades of petrol has increased by 20 cents a litre, while the price of diesel has increased between 62 cents and 65 cents a litre. Member of Parliament and National Coloured Congress leader Fadil Adams will be in the hot seat when he appears before Parliament's ad hoc committee today. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi accused him of having access to classified information. And the Congress of the People has described the death of its leader as a huge loss to the party. Mosiuoa Lekota died in the early hours of this morning at a hospital in Midrand at the age of 77. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, down into Durban. The N2 South stays closed. It probably will be for another 6 or 7 hours. That seems to be the normal sort of duration for these cash in transit heist investigations, minimum 6 to 7 hours. So we're looking at a closure, I would think, will last all morning. Shot between the M7 and the Higginson Highway exit. The traffic is dreadful this morning. You'll queue on the N2 from Spaghetti Junction just to get off at the M7. And then the M7 queues from North Dean, North Park, all the way down through Bel Air Wakesley, down through sort of Rossborough, right down to South Coast Road. All of that N2 South traffic are largely electing to sit on the M7 down to South Coast Road or the M7 connection. So the M7 M4 connections are very heavy. So if you don't fancy it, one way to route if you're going from the airport or from the Pinetown side down towards the South Coast is just going to Durban on the N3 and then cut back, find the Southern Freeway and just go down through Umbilo and Congella if you like, and avoid that heaviness on the N2 South and the M7 diversion. Northbound a little bit slow with onlooking as well. Just away from that, the N3 inbound, a crash near Pavilion Mall, so coming through from Paradise Valley, that traffic on your way to Durban's pretty heavily backed up. Seen this the last couple of mornings, with it again today. The N1 and N3 routes into Buccleuch for connections onto the M1 through Midrand looking quite busy. Crash scene on the Mike 1 north at Carr Street, so that traffic stays heavy getting through Crown, the Mike 1 north and the M2. Roadworks on the N3 north at Heldenay, still causing big backlogs out of Germiston and Alberton areas. Cape Town this morning, this was busy all day yesterday and the day before. It looks like being probably problem again today. They've altered the roadworks N7 North at Viking Way in Epping. Queues coming up passing that sort of Lunga area into that. But behind it, Viking Way, impossible traffic this morning from LC's, making your way down through Epping into that M7 roadwork section. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
You're playing your cards very close to your chest, I see, Zai. You're not telling me what you're leading with this morning.
Oh, I don't know if it has something to do with the low WhatsApp, but it's cricket, Proteas, Proteas.
Okay. Has it started? Has the match kicked off? By the way, in cricket, do you call it a kickoff or what is it?
We usually say first ball being bowled at 3:30.
Okay.
Well, I think the Proteas are also keeping their bowling and batting plans very close to their chest, to us. They are taking on the likes of New Zealand, and this team has got Rob Walter, who was the previous coach of the Proteas. So it's going to be a case of Shukri Conrad taking on Rob Walter this afternoon. But nevertheless, Proteas heading into this T20 World Cup semi-final against New Zealand in Kolkata, carrying a 7-match winning streak and the backing of the bookmakers. South Africa are favourites to reach the final, with betting markets predicting a potential Proteas versus India showdown. The match will be at Eden Gardens, getting underway at 3:30. Both teams expected to produce a high-scoring contest as two familiar rivals battle for a place in the final. Now, there's a battle for a place as well in the final when it comes to the Betway Premiership, the title race heating up. Orlando Pirates, Mamelodi Sundowns locked in a 2-horse battle at the top. The big difference could be depth and mentality. Sundowns can rotate without losing rhythm, while Pirates need to keep winning the so-called small games that decide championships. Rugby now. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus says it's good news for the Boks after World Rugby's Shape of the Game summit in London, with no big law shake-ups expected ahead of the 2027 World Cup. Rassie saying rugby's identity stays intact, the contest stays, and any tweaks could be minor, plus clearer guidance around red cards and TMO decision-making was discussed. More rugby. New Zealand Rugby has named former Wallabies coach Dave Rennie as the new head coach of the New Zealand National Rugby Union. The 62-year-old replaces Scott Robertson. He was dismissed earlier this year. Rennie, who previously won 2 Super Rugby titles with the Chiefs, says it's an incredible honour to lead the All Blacks as they also begin preparations for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. And finally, golf. South Africa's Casey Jarvis returns home for this week's Joburg Open at the Houghton Golf Club, aiming for a remarkable hat-trick of DP World Tour titles. The 22-year-old Jarvis arrives on a high after back-to-back wins at the Magical Kenya Open and South Africa Open, which lifted him to career best 80th in the world rankings and secured spots as both the Masters and the Open later this year. That's your sport. Swing back on to SAFM around 12:30. John Helliker will be keeping it locked in. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's start with news coming out of Discovery and their report of double-digit earnings.
That's right, Thulasizwe Discovery posting strong interim results with headline earnings climbing 29%. Now, South Africa remains the engine room, contributing 6.8 billion rands of the group's 8.9 billion rands in normalized operating profit. Discovery's life, health, insurance, and investment units all posted growth, while Discovery Bank turned a profit with operating a profit of 75 million rands. Now, the bank serves 1.4 million clients and continues to scale rapidly. Internationally, the Vitality operations in the UK and Asia lifted operating profit by 41%, with particular strong momentum in the UK health business. Management says it remains on track to meet its medium-term growth targets, supported by diversified earnings stream and improving operational leverage.
And then we're hearing from Aspen. Aspen is selling its Asia Pacific business.
That's right, and it's selling this unit to strengthen its balance sheet. The planned sale of its Asia Pacific business set to cut most of its 28.6 billion rand net debt and free up cash for future growth. Now, the divestment comes alongside its first half earnings, and the firm really took a hit due to restructuring efforts within its manufacturing units. Now, revenue fell 4% to 21 billion rands, and headline earnings declined 35%, impacted by the absence of a once off mRNA contract from the prior year and a near 700 million rand in restructuring costs. Now, despite those headwinds, Aspen's core commercial pharmaceuticals business remained resilient, with strong demand for injectables supporting that business. Remember that Aspen sells Eli Lilly's diabetes and weight loss drugs in SA, and it's quite optimistic about the prospects for that unit, further saying it expects increased demand for those products to be sustained.
I'm even afraid to ask Ndauling, but yeah, you know the question. Given everything you said earlier on about it being a bloodbath, the ninth worst day since the crisis in 2008, what are expectations today?
So the JSE likely to continue its steep decline, just mirroring what we've been seeing this morning over in international markets. Beyond geopolitics, investors will be digesting results from Woolies and Cash Build, while the upcoming RMBB Q1 Business Confidence Index will shed further light on private sector sentiment. That reports out later today. The rand remains on the back foot ahead of that print, trading at 16.57 to the dollar, 22.07 to the British pound, and 19.23 to the euro. We are seeing dollar strength, that of course being boosted by investors piling into the greenback. It seems like it's back in favor when it comes to being the safe haven of choice. Over in energy markets, oil continuing its rally amid Middle East tensions, with crude trading above $80 a barrel. Now, higher oil prices are weighing on equities, with investors considering the potential impact those prices could have on monetary policy moving forward. And so we are seeing US futures and Asian markets in negative territory.
All right, Ndauling, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela with your updates throughout the morning on business, economics, and the markets.
This February, fall in love with friendships that feel like family. Old bonds, new beginnings, and chapters that remind us why love, in all its forms, matters. The story comes full circle in The Best Man, the final chapters, where love, loyalty, and life collide one last time. Because some stories stay with you long after the final scene. The Best Man, the final chapters, weeknights 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
It's all about meat-free meals on Color Your Plate this Sunday evening at 7. 4 contestants compete to prove that a midweek family meal can be hearty, nutritious, and full of flavor, even without the meat. With a steering from a previous season watching closely as guest judge, the stakes are high. Who will earn their approval and cook alongside them in the next round? Find out on Color Your Plate Sundays at 7 p.m. Repeat Saturdays at 4:30, only on SABC2.
SAFM, in partnership with Symphony by the Water, taking place on the 7th of March at Midmadam, is giving away 15 double tickets to see an incredible lineup of South African artists supported by the KZN Philharmonic Orchestra. To win tickets, send a WhatsApp voice note to 0614 104 107, telling us which artists will be performing on the day and sing a line from one of their songs. Winners must be based in KwaZulu-Natal and must be able to get themselves to the venue. Terms and conditions apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SFM Radio.
Indeed, we are. Let's talk now to Dennis Bloom, a longtime comrade, fellow activist with Mosiuoa Lekota, the late Mosiuoa Lekota, in the wake of the news coming through of the passing on of the COPE leader, Mosiuoa Lekota. Dennis Bloom joins me now to pay tributes and reflect on Mr. Lekota's life. Good morning to you, and condolences to you as well, Mr. Bloom. Just in your own words, how do you remember the late Mosiuoa Lekota?
Good morning, Thulas, and good morning to the listeners. It's a very sad day today, not only for me personally, but for the entire country and all Comrade Terra's friends and comrades. Comrade Terra was a great man, a great, great, great man, a man who fought for this freedom that we are enjoying today. The history can never be completed without the name of Terra Lekota. Terra Lekota has planted a seed in the heart of many in South Africa. Personally, in my heart, he has made me brave to fight the apartheid enemy. He has made me very strong. He has to me many a times, we must never, ever back down to injustices. I will always remember Comrade Terra as my hero. I will always cherish everything that he has shared with me in life.
Yeah.
It's a very sad day to me, Thulas.
Yeah. So
and I'm sure
yeah,
the country feels the same.
For our own appreciation of that history and that personal journey, Mr. Bloom, recap for us as succinctly as you can when your paths first crossed and what drew you to his leadership, because it would seem you then followed each other for a lifetime.
You know, Thulas, in politics, as he has said before, infiltration in political parties is very, very right. The issue that myself and him cross swords, it's a thing of the past. I visited Comrade Terra in the hospital when he was sick. I visited him. That was not a personal thing. It has to do with politics.
Yeah. No, Mr. Bloom, I think maybe you didn't get my question. I'm asking, when you first met, what drew you, both of you, to each other? What about him at that point? So describe for us the circumstances under which you met and what made you believe that this is a leader with whom I can align.
Oh,
yes.
Thulas, you are taking me back to 1982. 1982, when December, when I was released from Robben Island, it was very, very dark days. The first release of him, 1982, it was only myself, his wife Cinti, and his daughter, the late Masiuoa Kotane, at the prison gates of Kroonstad prison. It's the first time that I met Comrade Terra at the gates there, and we were surrounded by the security police. Comrade Terra told me there, he didn't know me, the same. It's the first time that I met him, and he said to me, Comrade Dennis, I'm pleased to meet you, and we are going to take the struggle forward. We are not going to back down on this apartheid government. That will never go out of my head. The first day that I met Comrade Terra at the Kroonstad prison, he was sent from Robben Island to Kroonstad for a month to stay there. So he asked somebody, because people were scared also to go and meet Comrade Terra there at the prison. But I am going there. Whatever happens must happen. And I can tell you, my life changed since that day. I was in and out of prison. But I said, this is a true leader, Comrade Terra. I will never forget Comrade Terra.
Lastly, Mr. Bloom, for those wondering, you keep referring to him as Comrade Terra. And I recall a time when that was the main name that many people knew, Terra Lekota. If you happen to know, and I imagine you do, what is the context for that name?
He was a dribbling wizard on the soccer field. He mesmerized the opponents. That's why people were calling him Terra. When he had the ball, he will dribble the whole field and go and score. That's where the name comes from. Terra Lekota. He was a troublemaker on the soccer field. Terra Lekota. That's why he got that name of Terra. Everybody was calling him Terra.
All right, Mr. Bloom, thank you for sharing your memories of the late Mosiuoa Lekota. Dennis Bloom there, a longtime comrade of the late Mosiuoa Lekota. In fact, what we will do now is just play you an excerpt of the late COPE leader, Mosiuoa Lekota, a man who really was part of the journey to liberation, to freedom in South Africa, a former Delmas treason trial defendant, well, we don't call them accused, one of the accused in that trial that took place in 1985, but also long-time activist, including along the strand of the South African Students Organization, SASO, the civic movement, etc. So his journey was long in participating in the struggle for the liberation of South Africa. Let's hear him in his own words talking about Freedom Day.
We really have nothing to celebrate. That's why I'm here. I don't want to be where there are colorful buildings and other things. I want to be here among our people and say to them, what is it? Show me what is it that we can celebrate now. Look here, look around. Shacks and all of that. It would be misleading if I went to stand in the stadia and all of that which were left by the apartheid regime and say I'm celebrating freedom, because those things were there before we got there. Here, this place we are in, this is Orange Farm here. My father owned some little property that side and he was killed there. I'm here because this is the place I had hoped we would build homes, we will build proper roads, and we would see the children playing in soccer stadia, cricket, whatever you can think of. And then I would say that is the freedom that we wanted our people to have.
Right, that was Mosiuoa Patrick Terra Lekota, born 13 August 1948 and passed on the 4th of March 2026. May his soul rest in peace.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A top story stays the N2 southbound in Durban. The road remains closed and probably will do until lunchtime, maybe a little bit beyond that. Normally 6, 7, 8 hours is the average sort of closure time for highway cash in transit heist incidents. They need to be quite thoroughly investigated, and that is underway. So we would think most of the morning definitely closed and probably into the afternoon. The N2 south closed from the M7 all the way down to Higginson Highway. The M7 is queuing heavily this morning, taking all that diverting traffic off the N2. Queues Quays from Malvern, all the way down through the N2, through Bel Air, Wakesley, right down to about the South Coast Road junction in the Rossby area. It really is very heavily backed up. The N2 South obviously queuing to get off into that M7 as well, and routes like Sarnia and Wakesley coming around from Malvern and Quays route through Bel Air. Very heavy backlogging there as well. Very, very heavy in that part of Durban following that closure of the N2. Just staying in Durban, a crash on the N3 between Paradise Valley and Pavilion Mall. If you're in from Pinetown, N3, or joining from the M13 via Paradise Valley, that's quite slow. And an earlier truck crash around Escort this morning. Looks like it's probably been cleared, but some really big delays on the Durban-bound track, but that's all been sorted out. Another cash in transit heist happened this morning on the Bronkhorstspruit Road, just on the western side of Solomon Mshlangu. So if you come through that sort of Mamelodi area, probably be diverted along Solomon Mshlangu down towards the N4, and it's all a bit busy still in that part of Pretoria as well. N1, or the Mike 1 north at least, from Parktown, moving up through Houghton on your way to Sandton, looking a bit slow. The roadworks on the N3 north at Van Buren there until further notice, so that's dreadful as well. Just outside Cape Town, the N1 at Sandhills, just south of Dedurance, some stop-go controls on that section of the M1, so a bit of extra waiting around there. And we saw this yesterday, and it looks to be busy again today. N7 north roadworks have changed up and narrowed the roadway at Viking Way in Epping, so it stays heavy. But coming into the N7 along Viking Way from Elsie's River, really big backlogs through there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This February, fall in love with friendships that feel like family. Old bonds, new beginnings, and chapters that remind us why love, in all its forms, matters. The story comes full circle in The Best Man, the final chapters, where love, loyalty, and life collide one last time. Because some stories stay with you long after the final scene. The Best Man, the final chapters, weeknights 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
With Outsurance, saving on your car insurance feels like finding a till with no queue on payday weekend. 27-year-old Lynn saves a mind-blowing 638 Rand on her 2025 Haval Jolion. Get a quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, let me take more of your voice notes. Someone wants to reflect on the life and times of the late Mosiuoa Lekota.
Good morning to us. We are speaking to Olegas in Durban. I think the passing of Babu Tsera Lekota is an end of an era in our democracy. We will remember him as an ANC person who was brave enough to stand up for what he believed was not going well in his party, and he did something about it. So may his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
And then the issue of the statues, really, really dominating. So let me play as many as possible. Someone, I think, wants to talk about Chris Hani, and I imagine it's in the context of memorializing icons of the struggle.
Hi, Thulas, Vusi Lushaba, eThekwini. The one struggle hero that the ANC government has tried to erase from history and our memories. A struggle hero who was supposed to be our first president in 1994, who actually paved the way for Mandela to rise to presidency. It's Chris Hani. We should be having statues of Chris Hani all over South Africa, just as equal to the number of statues we have of Nelson Mandela.
Good morning, Thulas. This is Zuko from Komani. Hey, Thulas, this issue of these statues, I don't know whether they generate revenue or something, but what is the point? South Africa is in a state, a bad state, I should say, but they are busy erecting statues that do not help the people of South Africa. Thank you, Tulas.
All right, let me read one or two messages as well. This one coming through from Joshua Ndamulelo Murawudzi, who says, across Johannesburg South, who says, my heart goes out to the family, friends and comrades of Mosiuoa Lekota. May his legacy of courage, resilience and dedication to justice continue to inspire. Rest in peace, Lekota, says Joshua Ndamulelo Murawudzi on the WhatsApp line. And then let me see, someone else. Ibrahim says, a sad day indeed. One of the truest freedom fighters this country has ever seen. A revolutionary, a stalwart and giant of the liberation, epitomizing what his country's fight for freedom was all about. We thank him for his contribution to our fight for freedom. Lastly, let me read a message from Felix in Midrand, who says, I made a point earlier on about the questioning whether the EFF, MK party and SACP and the other parties that were being mentioned, including the ATM, would find enough common ground. Felix taking issue with that and saying to me, the main issues that are cardinal bringing the SACP and the EFF together are shared by the MK party too. Those being on the economy, the land, state bank, the South African Reserve Bank and SOEs are shared by all these, including the ATM. That this station blue ticks the MK party on its policies as an official opposition doesn't give it permission to caricature it outside of its official policies. Not once has the leader of that party in parliament or in the high command been featured on this station. A far cry from how from the treatment of the DA now and when they were in the official opposition, where they've been platformed positively so, and on every major issue we see, says Felix in Midrand. Don't have enough time to address all of that. I take the points you are making about the commonalities between the various parties. I still maintain that when you put them together, yes, there are commonalities, which I did acknowledge. Absolutely, I did. And there was no intention to caricature them in any way outside of their official policies. But I still maintain that if you go through their other positions, you will find that there's going to have to be work to be done for them to find a platform that says we are on the push for socialism and all of that. But I don't have time to address that. What I did want to talk about is saying that we are blue ticking the MK party. Speak to any of the producers, certainly on my show, and ask them how many times we reach out to the MK party. The track record has been improving somewhat in the last few months. Give credit where it's due. We spoke to one or two officials recently. But overall, taken as a whole, the track record is that sometimes you set up an interview with a leader of the MK party. You come here in the morning, you are going to have to sing because you will not find that leader. On big speeches, budget speech day, the State of the Nation address, we've learnt with time that it is difficult. They need to fine-tune their media machinery and ensure that their leaders are reachable and can platform, as you say, their policy positions. Can we do more? Certainly we can. But maybe from where you sit, it looks like we are trying to quote-unquote blue-tick them. But we have stories about them blue-ticking us that we can share with you. And as a producer of a morning show, you've got a gap of 7 minutes, 10 minutes that is not filled, where you've booked and profiled and said, at 7:10, I'll be speaking to Nhlamulo Ndlela. Come the time, dololo. So just take that into perspective. The policy issues, you and I can debate going forward, and I always welcome your inputs. That will have to do for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your engagement, as always. The Talking Point with Kete Mohlahlana up next. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, 2 security guards shot into cash-in-transit heist, and Fadil Adams to appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee. Good morning. 2 security guards have been shot and wounded, one critically, in a cash-in-transit heist on the N2 near the NPC cement factory in the south of Durban. The critically wounded security guards have been airlifted to hospital following the incident which happened this morning. Gareth Jameson is a paramedic.
The N2 southbound has been closed by NPC and will be closed for quite some time to allow investigators to investigate this incident. I'd advise motorists to avoid this area at all costs. At this stage, the events leading up to this alleged robbery are unknown. However, all necessary officials are in attendance and will be investigating further.
The Road Freight Association, RFA, has expressed deep concern on the latest fuel price hike following the escalating violence in the Middle East. The price of both grades of petrol has increased by 20 cents a litre, while the price of